Chapter 363. On the provincial highway from Guangyang to Fukang, two cars sped along at lightning speed. Tan Xiu was sitting in the second car, quietly reading the information about the Yang family. This time, he didn't bring a large number of people with him to Fukang, only 6 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall. It was because the first step in his plan was to carry out an assassination. Assassination could be described by the saying, "It's not the quantity of soldiers that counts, but the quality." Each of the 6 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall was capable of holding their own. Therefore, Tan Xiu was confident that the 7 of them could set off a bloody storm in Fukang in the following assassination operation. "Boss, Instructor Chen is in Fukang. He wants to see you." A man in the front seat turned his head and reported after hanging up the phone. "Who's Instructor Chen?" Tan Xiu raised his brows and asked with a puzzled expression. "Chen Xiaohua." The man whispered. "Where is he now?" Tan Xiu looked surprised and asked. "He's in the Emerald Grand Hotel," answered the man. "We haven't determined a place to stay, anyway. Let's go straight to the Emerald Grand Hotel." Tan Xiu nodded. "Understood." The man nodded. Half an hour later, the 2 cars drove to the underground parking lot of the Emerald Grand Hotel in Fukang's provincial capital. After parking the cars, the 7 of them took the elevator to the 18th floor. Just as he walked out of the elevator, Tang Xiu saw a middle-aged man with glasses standing outside. He looked gentle and refined. "Boss." Chen Xiaohua's eyes lit up upon seeing Tan Xiu and he bowed to salute. Tan Xiu observed him and nodded. "You're Chen Xiaohua, right?" "That's me." Chen Xiaohua replied with a smile. Tan Xiu waved his hand and walked toward the corridor while asking, "How did you come to Fukang? Does our Everlasting Feast Hall also have an antique business in Zhou City?" Chen Xiaohua accompanied Tan Xiu and said while walking, "There are indeed several antique shops in Zhou City, all of which are our Everlasting Feast Hall's businesses. But I came here this time because I have something to ask you, boss." "What is it?" Tan Xiu asked in surprise. Chen Xiaohua said, "Boss, let's talk in the room. I've already prepared the tea and have been waiting for your arrival." A strange look flashed across Tan Xiu's eyes as he nodded. Soon, under the guidance of Chen Xiaohua, Tan Xiu entered a presidential suite. The 6 men he brought with him stayed in the corridor. "Drinking tea is just a cover, isn't it? Tell me, what are you trying to do?" Chen Xiaohua stood in front of Tan Xiu and said with a smile, "Boss, first of all, I'd like to report to you about the cultivation situation. I have already converted all the true qi in my body into true essence, and my strength has increased by another level. Thank you for your trust and cultivation. I will carry out any orders you give me in the future." Tan Xiu gestured for him to sit down. After Chen Xiaohua sat opposite Tan Xiu, he said again, "Boss, what I want to ask you is, do you think there are other worlds outside our world?" Tan Xiu narrowed his eyes and nodded. "There are." Chen Xiaohua's spirit shook and he said, "Boss, I have something for you to appraise." After saying that, he took out a piece of ore from his pocket and bowed before Tan Xiu. 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone? Tan Xiu's complexion greatly changed after he saw the stone with a 7-colored halo of red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. After quickly grabbing it in his hand, his spiritual sense had already wrapped the 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone. After inspection, this was an ordinary 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone. But even if it was ordinary, if it was placed in the immortal world, it was likely that countless powerhouses would fight for it. Even the supreme-level characters in the immortal world would drool over it. 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone was an excellent material for refining immortal tools. A fist-sized 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone could be refined into a supreme-grade immortal tool. In the past, Tan Xiu had several supreme-grade immortal tools, 2 of which were mixed with 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone. When used, their power was much stronger than other supreme-grade immortal tools. "Chen Xiaohua, where did you get this or?" With a solemn expression, Tan Xiu stared at Chen Xiaohua and asked. Chen Xiaohua's complexion slightly changed and said, "Longquan Mountain in the west." "Tell me how you got it," said Tan Xiu. "Boss, you also know that I manage the antiques business of our Everlasting Feast Hall, said Chen Xiaohua. I heard that there are a lot of precious antiques in the West due to special reasons. That's why I brought some people here. About 2 months ago, we arrived at Longquan Mountain and found that the environment there was good. There are more than 100 villagers living in Longquan Mountain, and they have some old objects left from ancient times. I spent some money to buy those old objects. However, the road in Longquan Mountain is very difficult to walk on, so we stayed there for a night. At night, we had nothing to do, so we went hunting in the mountain and lost our way. Longquan Mountain may seem to have a beautiful environment, but it's actually very dangerous. That night, we encountered terrible fierce beasts and almost lost our lives there several times. As a result, we stumbled into a forest and found that the air there was very fresh, much fresher than anywhere else. Even breathing it made us feel comfortable all over. However, there were also very powerful fierce beasts in that forest. We were forced to go deeper and deeper. Later on, we found a tomb with an open entrance. We had no choice but to go in, only to find that we seemed to have entered another world. There were flowers and grass, blue sky, and white clouds. Most importantly, more than 80% of the plants and beasts inside were things we had never seen before. In addition, there were a lot of fierce beasts inside. Speaking up to there, Chen Xiaohua stopped and a bit of fear could be seen in his eyes. Even what? Asked Tan Xiu in a deep voice. We even found the shadow of a dragon there, said Chen Xiaohua in a low voice. It was a pitch-black black dragon with 5 claws. The black dragon was about 5 meters long and spewed out black flames. It was very terrifying. We saw the black flames sprayed on a boulder weighing tens of thousands of kilograms, and the boulder melted into liquid. Go on, Tan Xiu said. Chen Xiaohua said, we didn't go too deep, because it would only lead to death. So we quickly went back the way we came, and it took a lot of effort to come out alive. After I returned to Jingmen Island, I told the little boss about it, but the little boss asked me to keep it a secret. Tan Xiu frowned. He had never heard Gu Xiaoxue mention this matter. It wasn't until we learned the cultivation technique from Old Ji that I suddenly realized that the air in the place we had been to was particularly fresh because it was full of rich world energy, continued Chen Xiaohua. After I transformed all the true qi in my body into true essence, I mentioned this matter to the little boss again. Therefore, the little boss asked me to come here to find you and tell you what I know. But what? Asked Tan Xiu. But the little boss asked me to tell you something. It's very dangerous there, and he hopes you can be cautious, said Chen Xiaohua. It's best not to go there for the time being and wait. Tan Xiu finally understood why Gu Xiaoxue didn't tell him before. She was well aware of his own strength, and was afraid that he would rush there regardless of the danger after hearing about the small world. Chen Xiaojie, you must never tell anyone about this matter except for me and Gu Xiaoxue. That place is not something we can enter now, unless we're tired of living. One day in the future, when our strength becomes stronger, I'll take you there. I understand, boss. Chen Xiaohua nodded. You can rest assured. Give me this 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone. Tan Xiu said. Tell me a weapon, and I'll help you refine a divine weapon later. Chen Xiaohua's eyes lit up and immediately said, a dagger would be the best. I found that you all like to use daggers, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Just wait. When I use this 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone, I'll refine a dagger for you. By the way, you brought this 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone out from that small world. What else did you bring out? I found that this stone is different from the others. It seems to be a rare ore, said Chen Xiaohua with a forced smile. We only found this piece inside. As for the other things, we didn't bring them out. I have to say that you're very lucky to be able to come out alive with your strength. Tan Xiu nodded. All right, let's stop here. Go back and tell Gu Xiaoxue to rest assured that I won't go there in a short time. I'll keep it in mind. Chen Xiaohua nodded. Are you free at noon? Asked Tan Xiu. Let's have lunch together. Understood. Chen Xiaohua was pleasantly surprised and his attitude became more respectful. After lunch, Chen Xiaohua left the Emerald Hotel, and the presidential suite he booked naturally became Tan Xiu's residence. However, his buttocks had yet to warm up when he received a call from the old patriarch. Grandpa, what did you say? That's it? Tan Xiu's brows were deeply furrowed and he was a bit annoyed inside. His next battle plan had been completed, yet the old patriarch said that the Yao family had taken the initiative to admit defeat and wanted to end the game between Guangyang and Fukang. Let's stop for the time being. What our Tang family needs the most now is time. According to the plan I've drawn up, the Tang family's accumulated wealth for decades will all be poured into it. We must train more talents in the next 3 to 5 years. I want the Tang family to return to its heyday in 10 years at most, or even surpass its heyday, said Tang Guoxing with all seriousness. Tan Xiu was silent for a while before he helplessly said, all right. Since you've decided, then I'll obey. It's a pity. I thought I could make a fortune by playing the game with the Yao, Sun, and Yang families. But now it seems that I can only fish for some benefits. What benefits? Tang Guoxing was confused. Today is Valentine's Day. Quiet Night can only update the last chapter. There's no way to add more chapters. Please understand, brothers and sisters. I'll definitely return the monthly votes later. Chapter 364. When Tan Xiu heard Tang Guoxing's inquiry, he faintly smiled and said, when we carried out the assassination in the Sun family's manor, we also threatened those who were killed and made them transfer some money to me. It's not a lot, only about 600 to 700 million in total. I originally planned to take action against the Yao family and fish out some money from them. Yet you unexpectedly asked for a truce. Cough. Tang Guoxing was at a loss whether to laugh or cry as he coughed a few times. This grandson of his didn't forget to fish for benefits even when carrying out the assassination. He really admired him. Xiu, our Tang family is still inferior to the Yao family. Just wait and see. When we really develop, we won't let this matter go. You'll have the time to fish for benefits later. As for the 600 to 700 million, just take it as pocket money. Tan Xiu said with a smile, all right. Since the matter here is over, then I'll return to Shanghai tomorrow. Who will handle the matter here? Give it to Little Wei. Tang Guoxing said. No problem. If you don't have any other instructions, then I'll hang up first. Tan Xiu said. All right. The call ended. Tan Xiu fiddled with his mobile phone and shook his head with a helpless expression. Afterward, he called the Huang family's patriarch, Huang Jinfu, and told him that the matter was over and he no longer needed the Huang family's intelligence network to provide information. The night, he personally brought Tang Wei to the Huang family and enjoyed dinner with the Huang family's patriarch, deepening their friendship before returning to the Emerald Hotel. Boss Hei Long stood outside the Emerald Hotel. Upon seeing Tan Xiu coming back, he immediately greeted him with a happy expression. Tan Xiu nodded and brought Hei Long upstairs to the presidential suite. After taking a seat on the sofa, he calmly said, Hei Long, you're very lucky. The Yao family has admitted defeat, so the dispute between our two families is over. You've done well in Hongpa district, so I'll keep my promise and give you a good future. Thank you, boss. Hei Long said excitedly. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, I'll leave Guangyang tomorrow. Tang Wei will be in charge here for the time being. He will help you expand your territory. In the next few years, if you really have the ability, it won't be impossible for you to become the leader of Guangyang's underground forces. But you have to promise me something. Black Dragon's body shook violently as he hurriedly said, Boss, please tell me. I'll definitely agree. Don't agree so fast. Tan Xiu shook his head. My requirements are very simple. You must not be involved in drugs, you must not be forced into prostitution, and you must not be allowed to operate a casino. I don't care what kind of business you do, but if you violate these 3 conditions, I will personally cut off your head before the police take care of you. The Black Dragon hesitated. Boss, I can agree to your request. But my manpower and financial resources are limited. If I want to take over the entire Guangyang province, I'm afraid. Tan Xiu said, if you want money, give me money. If you want people, give me people. The Black Dragon's spirit shook and he immediately said, I understand, boss. Don't worry. I'll definitely work hard and seriously. No matter what I do in the future, I'll give you 2/3 of the income from my business every year. You're very astute. Tan Xiu said with a smile. I'm a bit worried now. Will I raise a tiger and invite calamity? You're joking, boss. Black Dragon forced a smile. With your strength and the Tang family's power, let alone making me a major force in Guangyang, even if my men spread all over the country in the future, I still won't be your opponent. But I heard that the Sun family is very miserable. A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he waved and said, I'm just joking with you. As for the money you hand in every year, just take 1/3 of it and give it to the Tang family's person in charge in Guangyang. This is also our Tang family's investment in you. Yes. Black Dragon was happy inwardly as he repeatedly nodded and replied. Tan Xiu waved and said, all right. If there's nothing else, you can go back first. After Tang Wei has dealt with the matters here, he'll look for you. As Black Dragon left, Tang Wei entered the room from the outside. Tan Xiu told him about Black Dragon and told him to take good care of him. Brother, that Black Dragon is not a good person. Tang Wei forced a smile. As far as I know, not only is he ruthless, but he's also heartless. You killed 2 of his trusted men with your own hands, yet he didn't bear any resentment. This kind of person values benefits the most. I'm afraid it will be very troublesome to restrain him later. Actually, this kind of person is the best to control, Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. With the Tang family as a deterrent, he won't dare to do anything out of line. Since he values benefits, then we'll give him benefits. As long as he has the ability, he'll be a sharp knife for our Tang family if we use him well in the future. However, the Tang family's support for him can only be done in secret. I understand. Tang Wei nodded and said again, are you going to leave Guangyang tomorrow? Haven't you already asked for a leave from Shanghai University? As a matter of fact, I still have things to do in Shanghai. Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. Since the matter here has been temporarily concluded, it's meaningless for me to continue staying here. I'll go back earlier to handle my business. What business? Tang Wei was surprised. How come I never heard you mention it before? Tang Wei was surprised. Tan Xiu said, I have a winery in Star City. Today is the wine tasting conference that happens once every few years. The wine produced by my winery has been sent to the wine tasting conference. I'm also looking forward to this wine tasting conference to promote my business in this area. Tang Wei couldn't help laughing and said, brother, you really dabbled in a lot of business. All right, leave it to me, you can rest assured. Guangyang, Guan City Airport. Yao Xinhua and a few of his trusted men were sitting quietly in the waiting room. His mood was very bad, simply bad to the extreme. Originally, he brought a group of elite experts from his family and joined hands with the Sun family to destroy the Tang family's territory here, almost causing the Tang family to lose Guangyang. However, the situation didn't go according to his plan. On the contrary, the Tang family's counterattack unexpectedly caused him to suffer heavy losses, and even the Sun family was almost destroyed. The game in Guangyang this time was a disgrace to him. He didn't want to return to the imperial capital with his tail between his legs, but his family's patriarch had ordered him to go back and end the game with the Tang family in Guangyang. This made him so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Young master. A strong man strode into the waiting room. Yao Xinhua slightly frowned and said in a deep voice, what's the matter? The strong man replied in a low voice, young master, it's been investigated clearly. Ever since Tang Yunpeng left Guangyang, the one in charge of the Tang family's affairs here is called Tan Xiu. He's the one who led the Tang family's experts to attack us. Tan Xiu? Yao Xinhua frowned and said, I know the Tang family's people more or less. But there's no such person in the Tang family. Where did he come from? The strong man said, Tan Xiu is the biological son of the Tang family's Tang Yunda. He's been wandering outside all these years. 2 months ago, the Tang family found Tan Xiu and took him back to the family to carry out a ceremony to recognize his ancestors. He's 20 years old this year. I heard that he has just been admitted to college, and he's also the top scorer in science subjects in Shuangqing province. A few days ago, Tang Wei came to Shanghai to find him, so the Tang family gave him full authority to deal with the matters in Guangyang. Yao Xinhua's complexion changed as he coldly said, you mean my real opponent is this Tan Xiu? And he's only 20 years old? A young brat who has just been admitted to college? That's right. The strong man could feel Yao Xinhua's anger, but he still answered honestly. Yao Xinhua was silent for a while. Then he suddenly grinned and shook his head, saying, I didn't expect the Tang family to hide so deeply. They even pushed such a young brat to the front to cover up. It's really like they're hiding something. I think that the real person in charge of the Tang family in Guangyang is not Tan Xiu, but someone else. Otherwise, how could a young brat defeat me? The strong man said in a low voice, Young master, I also think so after getting the information. I also sent someone to investigate Tan Xiu's situation in Star City. He's very ordinary, very ordinary. He's just lucky to know some people with a bit of power. Who are they? Asked Yao Xinhua. The strong man said, Long Zhengyu, the young master of the Long family in Star City, and Chen Zhizhong, the owner of the Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical. That's right, he's also a high school classmate of the Yuan family's big boss, Yuan Jingshuan's son, Yuan Chuling. Yao Xinhua shook his head and said, That brat does have a bit of ability, but the element of luck is too heavy. It's not worth paying attention to. All right, let's put aside the investigation on Tan Xiu. You continue to investigate the Tang family's chief commander behind the scenes. Shanghai, Linyuan Community. Han Qingwu was driving a red Audi A4. After registering at the gate, she slowly drove inside. She had long gotten the key that Tan Xiu entrusted Yu Kai to give her. But she hadn't given the money to Tan Xiu yet, so she hadn't come over. She happened to have nothing to do today, so on a whim, she rushed over to see the house. I hope the house that brat gave me is good. Otherwise, I'll make him look good when he comes back. Han Qingwu followed the address of the house and parked the car in front of a residential building. Then, she took the key and entered the building. The grade is good, huh? Can I really rent this place for such a small amount of money? Han Qingwu found that there was actually a property manager's office inside. Moreover, there were several well-dressed men and women who were busy working there. The construction and decoration of this place gave her a feeling that it was a high-end atmosphere. 27th floor. After taking the elevator to the 27th floor, Han Qingwu stood in the corridor and looked at the two doors on the first floor. She immediately took out the key and opened the door according to the room number given by Tan Xiu. Heavens! Isn't this too exaggerated? Han Qingwu strode through the door. After seeing the environment inside, her eyes stared wide and her mouth slightly opened with a surprised expression. I'm busy with work this week, so I can only maintain 2 chapters a day for the time being. But on Sunday, I'll definitely strive to make up for all the chapters with monthly votes. Chapter 365. The magnificent hall was decorated in an extremely luxurious style. The floor and wooden floor were covered with beige carpets, and all kinds of appliances were high-end foreign brands. Even the sofas in the living room were expensive leather sofas. The most exaggerated thing was the 60-inch LCD TV, which could directly watch movies at home. It's too extravagant. Han Qingwu took off her shoes and went to other places to look around. Her beautiful face showed a dissatisfied and shocked expression, and she couldn't help but sigh. She made a rough estimate and found that the area of the house was at least 250 square meters. 5 bedrooms, 3 living rooms, 1 kitchen, and 2 bathrooms. Even the balcony was more than 10 square meters. She knew the housing prices in Shanghai. In this metropolis where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, such a house would definitely cost more than 10 million. After looking around, Han Qingwu took out her mobile phone with a wry smile and dialed Tan Xiu's number. After a while, the phone was connected. Tan Xiu, are you kidding me? Your friend's house is too. You're not satisfied? Tan Xiu's voice came out of the phone. Han Qingwu said with a wry smile, It's not that I'm not satisfied, I'm very satisfied. This house is simply a mansion, with an area of at least 250 square meters, and the decoration is super luxurious. Tell me, will they agree to pay a few thousand yuan a month? Tan Xiu said, It's good that you're satisfied. I said that they just don't want the house to be empty, and they don't care about the rent. If you don't want to live here, then forget it. Han Qingwu hurriedly said, I'll live here. Who said I won't live here? It's a waste not to take advantage of it. It's settled then. When you come back from abroad, I'll give you half a year's rent first. But Tan Xiao agreed and directly hung up the phone. Han Qingwu took the phone and listened to the busy tone coming from the other side. She couldn't help but roll her eyes. However, looking at such a luxurious and beautiful house, a smile appeared on her face again. The next day, the bright sun shone on the earth. Shanghai World Trade Exhibition Center. Hundreds of brands of drinks from all over the country were placed in front of the counters. There were several people in charge of each counter. In the aisle outside the counter, liquor wholesalers from all over the country were loitering in front of each counter, looking at all kinds of fine wines. Inside counter number 0246, Kong Xia quietly sat on a chair, watching the stream of people coming and going. The God's Nectar produced by the magnificent Tang Corporation's winery was once unknown to many people, yet no one showed any desire to order it. In fact, because of the price list displayed on the signboard, countless people ridiculed him. How come I've never heard of this magnificent Tang Corporation? And this wine, there was only one type, but it was priced at 18888. Was this an international joke? I really don't know how stupid the boss of this group is to actually sell it at such a sky-high price without any fame. There are indeed a lot of expensive drinks in the country, but this God's Nectar is really not afraid of making others laugh their heads off. The owner of this liquor must be crazy for money. 18,888 for a bottle? Isn't this too fake? Don't tell me they used bejeweled nectar inside? When the forest is big, there are all kinds of birds. I guess this company deliberately raised the price so high for the sake of publicity. Let's go, let's not bother about it. Kong Xia quietly listened to the comments of the passers-by with a tranquil expression. Even Su Quan, who was standing at the side, maintained a smile on his face, paying no attention to the discussions of the others. Grandpa, this wine is interesting. I've never heard of this name, yet it's priced at 18888. Is this wine better than the top-grade Wuliangye? A crisp female voice came over. An old man and a young man came to the front and back of the counter. The old man looked at the 4 bottles of God's Nectar placed on the counter with a surprised look on his face. After hesitating for a moment, he looked at Su Quan inside and curiously asked, "Little brother, where's the origin of your wine? Also, the other counters can taste it, but why don't you have it?" "Uncle, the origin of our wine is Shuangqing Province's Star City," said Su Quan with a smile. "As for why we can't taste it, it's because we're afraid that people who don't know its quality will spoil it. Also, we don't need the favor of those liquor wholesalers. The reason why we're participating in the wine tasting conference is that we just want to spread the reputation of this God's Nectar." The old man gave a thumbs up and praised, "You're courageous and confident. Such being the case, I'm looking forward to the taste of your wine. So, since you can't taste it, how about I buy a bottle from you? To be honest, there are not many things that can make this old man curious these days, but this wine has aroused my curiosity." Su Quan turned to look at Kong Xia. Kong Xia got up from her chair and looked at the pair of grandfather and granddaughter in front of her. She then said with a smile, "Uncle, we brought 4 bottles of wine. Except for the 2 bottles we need to use in the wine tasting conference, we can use the remaining 2 bottles at will. Since you want to taste it, then I'll give you a bottle for free. If you think this wine is good, I hope you can help promote it." The old man stared blankly for a moment before he nodded and said with a smile, "Well said, well said." After saying that, the old man took a bottle of God's Nectar in his hand and then said to his granddaughter next to him, "Little Ing, give me my wine cup." "All right." The 17 or 18-year-old girl carefully took out a 4-cornered crystal cup from the bag she was carrying and handed it to the old man. The old man opened the bottle and poured half a cup into the 4-cornered crystal cup. Suddenly, his eyes widened with a surprised look. "It's mellow and intoxicating. Although this old man hasn't tasted it yet, I'm already attracted by the wine's aroma." The old man let out a deep sigh, then took a sip. A few seconds later, his expression became stunned. Then, his old face turned red, and at the same time, there was a strong sense of shock. Under Kong Xia and Su Quan's smiling expression, The old man slowly closed his eyes. Grandpa, don't keep us guessing. How's this wine? The girl pulled the old man's sleeve with a dissatisfied expression on her delicate face. The old man instantly opened his eyes and couldn't help but praise, "Good wine. Good wine." This old man has drunk countless wines in his life, but there's only one kind of wine that can be compared to this. Su Quan grinned and said, "Are you kidding me, uncle? I've also drunk a lot of wine, but I've never tasted anything better than this. I went to Shenangjia more than 40 years ago and found a group of monkeys there," said the old man with a smile. "Have you heard of it? It's called monkey wine. Unfortunately, I had a chance to drink a few mouthfuls before I was attacked by those monkeys and eventually fled in defeat. The taste of that monkey wine is still unforgettable. I never thought that there would be such a good wine in this world apart from that monkey wine." Su Quan suddenly understood and said with a smile, "I've only heard about monkey wine, but I've never tasted it. Uncle, since you think our God's nectar is good, then you must help us promote it." Rest assured, this old man will naturally abide by his promise. The old man smiled and said, "Anyways, can I order some wine from you first? We'll go with the price you mentioned." "Thank you for liking our God's nectar, uncle. But we won't sell it privately," said Kong Xia with a smile. "If you like it, we'll send it to our exclusive stores in each city after the wine tasting conference. You can buy it there." "Your company opened its own exclusive stores?" The old man was surprised. "That's right," said Kong Xia with a smile. The old man gave a thumbs up and praised, "That's a big move. Nowadays, those wineries sell their wine to liquor wholesalers who open exclusive stores all over the country. But you actually invest in your own exclusive stores and sell it directly to the customers. Amazing. This is our boss's request, so we can only obey it," said Kong Xia with a smile. "Who is your boss?" The old man nodded and asked. "I'm sorry, uncle. Our boss rarely intervenes in the company's affairs, so we can't announce his information to the public due to his character of not showing his face in public. Perhaps in the future, you will know who he is." The old man couldn't help laughing and said, "It seems that your boss must be a big shot. Anyways, how about we make a deal? I really like this wine. Since we met here, can you sell me some in advance? I don't want a lot, just sell me 10 boxes. I'll go to your store to buy more after I finish drinking it." Kong Xia was a bit hesitant. The old man took out a business card from his pocket and handed it to Kong Xia, saying, "Young lady, this is my business card." Kong Xia took it and glanced at it. Her complexion slightly changed. "Are you Elder Du Kuan, the Vader Group's boss?" "I didn't expect that a young lady like you would know me," said Du Kuan with a smile. "Like me and the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss, I hardly appear at the front desk, no?" Kong Xia took out a business card and handed it to Du Kuan, saying, "Elder Du, we've actually talked on the phone before." Du Kuan stared blankly and took Kong Xia's business card. He frowned and thought hard for a while before he asked with a confused expression, "I know the name Kong Xia. You're the most famous gold manager in the world. Are you? If I'm not mistaken, you should be talking about me," said Kong Xia with a smile. "But I don't dare to accept the title of the most famous gold manager in the world." Du Kuan was a bit moved. He looked at Kong Xia deeply and curiously said, "I still remember that I personally invited you to be the CEO of our Vader Group, but you refused." Kong Xia said with a smile, "I just came out from my previous company. I've been working hard for many years, so I wanted to have a good rest." Du Kuan finally confirmed Kong Xia's identity. A solemn and respectful expression appeared on his face as he nodded and sighed. "I really didn't expect that the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss would be able to invite you. He's really lucky, really lucky." Kong Xia said with a smile, "Elder Du, since you want to buy our wine, then I'll take the liberty to sell you 10 boxes. However, we didn't bring it with us this time. I'm afraid you'll need to send someone to Star City to get it." "No problem," Du Kuan said with a smile. Chapter 366. Following Du Kuan's departure, it didn't take long for many people to learn from him that this year's wine tasting conference would have a God's nectar with a mellow taste and superb taste. If it were someone else praising the God's nectar, perhaps everyone would just laugh it off. But Du Kuan, whether it was in the business world or his other identity, made people secretly surprised. He was actually one of the judges of this year's wine tasting conference. Old Du, you're not someone who talks big. Is that God's nectar really as exaggerated as you said? The organizer of the wine tasting conference, Qin Changlin, vice president of the China Wine Industry Association, asked with a curious expression. The other judges of the wine tasting conference also looked at Du Kuan curiously, waiting for his answer. I can guarantee that the magnificent Tang Corporation's God's nectar will definitely make you praise it. Du Kuan smiled. How about I pour a cup for you to smell? Qin Changlin couldn't help laughing and said, Old Du, don't joke around. Let us smell it? Letting them taste their wine before the official start of the wine tasting conference is already giving them a big face. Du Kuan crooked his finger at his granddaughter behind him. The girl quickly took out the bottle of God's nectar and poured a cup. The fragrance of the wine overflowed. In just a few seconds, Qin Changlin and the 5 judges' eyes instantly lit up. One of them couldn't help but gulp down his saliva. Fragrant. It's really fragrant. They simply couldn't believe that just a single cup would have such a strong and pure wine aroma. Qin Changlin quickly reached out and said, Let me taste it. Du Kuan's eyes and hands were quick. He instantly grabbed the 4-cornered crystal cup from his granddaughter's hand and poured the wine into his stomach. Then, an intoxicated expression appeared on his old face. This wine should only exist in the heavens. How many people in the world can smell it? Du Kuan couldn't help but sigh again. The girl looked at the 6 people around and gulped down their saliva. She couldn't help but laugh out loud. Qin Changlin grabbed an empty cup from the side and winked at the girl. Immediately, the girl smiled and poured him a cup. Let me taste it. Qin Changlin placed it in front of his nose and sniffed it. After revealing a slightly intoxicated expression, he took a small sip. A moment later, his expression turned into one of shock and disbelief. President Qin, how is it? A judge hurriedly asked. Qin Changlin looked at the remaining God's nectar in his cup and looked a bit helpless. He forced a smile and said, I regret it. I really shouldn't have drunk this wine. The judge was taken aback. He then looked at Du Kuan and said with a smile, Old Du, your lie has been seen through, right? This wine smells good, but I'm afraid it's not that good. Qin Changlin glanced at Du Kuan, who had a strange smile on his face, and said with a wry smile, Little Li, I haven't finished speaking yet. I mean, I regret drinking it because I'm afraid I won't be able to drink it again. Old Du was right. This wine should only be found in the heavens. How many times could one smell it in the mortal world? Good wine, peerless wine. If I don't drink a few mouthfuls every day, I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep well in the future. The judge was stunned. He quickly grabbed an empty cup and extended his hand to the girl. The others looked surprised and grabbed their blankets one after another. 1 minute later, the 5 people's expressions were the same as Du Kuan and Qin Changlin, who had just drunk the God's nectar. Shock and disbelief were written all over their faces. Old Du, tell me quickly, where did you get this wine? Quick. I've never drunk such a good wine in my life. It's so satisfying. Tell me quickly. No matter how much it costs, I'll buy it as much as I can. A judge hurriedly shouted. Qin Changlin also quickly said, Yeah, Old Du, tell me quickly, where did you buy this wine? I want to buy it too. This wine is not cheap. A bottle costs 18,888 yuan. Do you really want to buy it? Du Kuan grinned. We're all wine lovers. Let alone 18888, I'll buy it even if it costs 18,888 yuan, said Qin Changlin without hesitation. Me too. The others also shouted one after another. Du Kuan shook his head and said with a smile, Even if you give so much money, I'm afraid the seller won't sell it to you now. However, I can tell you where the counter that sells this God's nectar is. Counter number 0246, you go there. Qin Changlin hurriedly put down the empty cup in his hand and strode outside. As for the other 5 people, they also jogged outside. At counter number 0246, Kong Xia hung up the phone with a happy expression on her face. Under the astonished expression of Su Quan and the others, she quickly ran out of the counter and ran toward the entrance of the wine-tasting conference venue. Strange, what's wrong with Chief Kong? Who called Chief Kong? To actually make her lose her composure like this? Strange, strange. Su Quan seemed to realize something amidst their discussion. He secretly guessed inwardly, could it be that Tan Xiu came? Perhaps only he can make Chief Kong lose her composure like this, right? Outside the venue's entrance. With a wry smile, Tan Xiu looked at the 4 security guards who stopped him. He spent a lot of words, but the 4 of them didn't let him go in no matter what. In desperation, he had to call Kong Xia. After returning to Shanghai from Guangyang, he just went back to put away his luggage, took a bath, and changed into clean clothes. Then, he hurried here because he was concerned about the wine-tasting conference. Bus. With a fragrant wind, Kong Xia appeared in front of Tan Xiu with a happy expression. After seeing Kong Xia, the 4 security guards' complexions slightly stagnated. Although they had seen Kong Xia before, they were still shocked by her soul-stirring beauty when they saw her again. I don't have an entry pass, so they won't let me in, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I'm afraid I can only ask you to take me in. Kong Xia looked at the 4 security guards and said with a smile, hello. He's our company's boss, so he should be able to go in, right? Seeing Kong Xia talking to him, one of the security guards immediately nodded in flattery. Kong Xia showed him a charming smile again, and then made a gesture to Tan Xiu, boss, let's go in. Tan Xiu smiled in response. After entering, he asked, how's the progress of the wine-tasting conference? I just got off the plane and rushed over here. Today is the promotion day for the counter, and tomorrow is the official wine-tasting conference. The price of our God's nectar is too high. Many people have been laughing at us for most of the morning. 10,000 a bottle. Of course it's very high, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Kong Xia stared blankly and asked with a confused expression, boss, our God's nectar isn't 10,000 a bottle. Didn't I tell you before? After the group's high-level discussion, the price is set at 18,888 yuan a bottle. What? Tan Xiu stared blankly and suddenly recalled something. He patted his head and said with a wry smile, I'll compensate you. A few days ago, I was in a restaurant in Shanghai and had a drink with some friends. I told them that it's 10,000 a bottle. In the end, they wanted to order a batch of wine from our winery. Kong Xia couldn't help laughing and said, it's all right. Since they're your friends, it's normal for them to be cheaper. However, we can't set this precedent again in the future. It's fine if it's 10,000 a bottle, said Tan Xiu helplessly. I even gave them a discount. Kong Xia was choked by Tan Xiu's words. She looked at Tan Xiu with an expression of being at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh. Then, she curiously asked, boss, are you regretting it? Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, it's more than regretful. I regret it so much that my intestines turn green. Damn it, the price is directly reduced by more than half. Forget it, forget it. I can't give face to those so-called friends later. It's all money. It's a lot of money. They haven't contacted me yet, so you don't have to worry about it. If we wait until our God's nectar hits the market and they know our price, they will think that you're more generous and worthy to be friends with. Tan Xiu shook his head with a wry smile. That night, apart from Miao Wenong, how could the others be considered as friends? They were the ones who had taken advantage of this bargain. While speaking, the duo returned to the vicinity of counter 0246. What's going on? Kong Xia's footsteps instantly halted. She looked at the counter that was surrounded by people and suddenly revealed a bit of confusion. Are those people surrounding our counter? Tan Xiu asked. Yes. Kong Xia nodded. When I just came out to greet you, our counter was deserted. How come there are so many people surrounding it in such a short time? Let's go and find out the reason, said Tan Xiu. Before the duo squeezed into the crowd, they heard Su Quan's voice coming out from inside. Ladies and gentlemen, our God's nectar is really not for sale. Besides, we only brought 4 bottles. Our general manager just gave 1 bottle away, and the remaining 3 bottles will be used tomorrow. So, I'm sorry. If you want to buy it, Wait for our exclusive stores in Shanghai and even in major cities in the country to open in a few days. Please go to our store to buy it. In the innermost part, Qin Changlin forced a smile and said, "Little brother, just sell me a bottle. There are 2 bottles of wine for tomorrow's competition, and I'll only buy 1. The God's nectar that old dude just gave us to taste is simply delicious. If I get addicted to wine and can't drink such a good wine, I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep when I go back." "Uncle, it's not that I don't want to sell it," said Su Quan. "I'm just an errand boy. Our general manager has gone out. Would you like to wait for me?" Under Tan Xiu's escort, Kong Xia squeezed to the innermost part and looked at the people surrounding the counter. After entering the counter with Tan Xiu, she asked, "What's the situation?" Upon seeing Tan Xiu, Su Quan's eyes suddenly lit up and he quickly said, "Chief Kong, they want to buy our God's nectar. They even said that they will buy as much as we have now." Kong Xia looked at Qin Changlin and the others and said with a smile, "Ladies and gentlemen, our company's people have just made it very clear. Everyone please go back. It is expected that our magnificent Tang Corporation will hold a press conference a few days later. After the press conference, 50 exclusive stores of God's nectar in 25 cities across the country will open at the same time. At that time, I hope you will come to our exclusive stores to support us. I'm really sorry. The reason why I haven't been able to break out in the past few days is because of my poor health. On the other hand, Quiet Knight is the president of the Chongqing Online Writers Association. Recently, the Municipal Writers Association will hold a general committee meeting, so all kinds of preparations are quite busy. Let Quiet Knight rest for a few days. I'll definitely break out on Sunday." Chapter 367. Standing behind the counter, Tan Xiu looked at the expectant faces of Qin Changlin and the others, as well as the surprised faces of many onlookers. He was very satisfied. Although he didn't know why Qin Changlin and the others were scrambling to buy God's nectar, he believed that these people were not hired by Tan Xiu. "Chief Kong, please make an exception for me. I'll buy a bottle now. We only need 2 bottles for tomorrow's wine tasting conference. In any case, you're keeping this bottle, so why don't you sell it to me? I'll pay double, no, I'll pay 10 times the price. Old brother Du Kun got a bottle from you and we all tasted it. It's truly a delicacy. I don't want to drink any other wine after drinking your God's nectar." Qin Changlin said, "Uncle, it's not that I don't want to sell it." Kong Xia forced a smile. "You see, besides you, the others also want to buy it. I'm afraid they won't be happy if I sell it to you. Therefore, for the sake of fairness, you should wait until the end of the wine tasting conference and the opening of our exclusive store. At that time, you can buy it." Qin Changlin looked at the others and whispered to them. Then he looked up and said, "Chief Kong, we've discussed it. You sell us a bottle and we'll drink it together tonight. The price is still, as I said, 10 times the price. What do you think?" Kong Xia pondered for a moment before she nodded and said, "Since you really like it, then I can't charge you more. The price is still 18,888 yuan per bottle. Pay the bill and take 1 bottle." All right. Qin Changlin didn't hesitate to take out his wallet. To his surprise, there were only a few thousand yuan in cash. The other 5 also took out their wallets and quickly pooled 18,900 yuan. Kong Xia didn't want to charge more, so she gave them 12 yuan in change. "Everyone, if you really like the God's nectar produced by our magnificent Tang Corporation, I hope you can help us promote it. Although fragrant wine needs no dark alley, but with your help in promoting it, the God's nectar can enter the domestic market as soon as possible and bring us benefits." Kong Xia said with a smile. Qin Changlin nodded. He turned around and raised the God's nectar in his hand and loudly said, "I'm one of the judges of this wine tasting conference and the vice president of the Chinese Wine Industry Association. The 5 people beside me are also the judges of this year's wine tasting conference. We were fortunate enough to taste the God's nectar in advance. The taste was very mellow. It was the best wine we had ever tasted. I hope everyone can help promote it. It's definitely worth it to buy it for 18,888 yuan." Hua! The onlookers immediately boiled up and stared at the bottle of God's nectar in his hand with shocked expressions. Today, Those who could come to the wine tasting conference were all people who had a deep understanding of the wine industry. Most of them knew Qin Changlin's identity, and they also knew that this old man had a fair and just attitude, which was why he was able to become a judge of the wine tasting conference for 6 consecutive years. If someone else had said this, they might not have believed it. However, Qin Changlin's words convinced countless people. Moreover, there were 5 judges from the wine tasting conference. They had tasted countless wines and had a deep understanding of each one. Since they all agreed that God's nectar was a rare wine in the world, and it was absolutely true. Looks like a dark horse has appeared in this year's wine tasting conference. I'm really curious about the taste of this God's nectar. My curiosity was piqued by the judges' words and their expressions. How delicious is this God's nectar that they all agree that it's rare in the world? I want to buy a bottle to taste. Unfortunately, there are only 2 bottles left. When the magnificent Tang Corporation's exclusive store opens, I'll definitely rush there to buy some and taste it on the spot. If it's really as the judges said, that it's a rare wine in the world, I'll definitely order a lot of it. To be recognized by so many judges and given such high praise, this has never happened in the previous wine tasting conferences. There are 7 judges from the Wine Industry Association in every wine tasting conference. If the other judge is also full of praise like them, I'll order a lot of it now. Didn't you hear it just now? These 6 judges have tasted God's nectar. Moreover, they learned about the existence of God's nectar from the 7th judge, Elder Du Kuan. That's right. Along with the sounds of discussion, a middle-aged man struggled to squeeze to the innermost side. He looked at Kong Xia and said, "Chief Kong, I want to order 200 boxes of your God's nectar." "I'll order 200 boxes." "I'll also order 200 boxes." Another man was unwilling to be outdone. Kong Xia was at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh as she looked at them. She then said with a smile, "I'm really sorry. Our magnificent Tang Corporation doesn't order God's nectar from the outside and only sells it in our exclusive store. If you want to buy it, you can only buy it from our store. Furthermore, due to the limited production of God's nectar, each customer can't order more than 2 boxes, that is, 12 bottles." The man stared blankly and exclaimed, "Are you doing business? Some people want to buy your wine, yet you even set a limit? What kind of joke is this?" "It's our boss's decision. We have no right to make the decision and can only execute it," Kong Xia said with a smile. "Chief Kong, who's the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss?" Qin Changlin asked with a puzzled expression. "I'm sorry. Our boss doesn't like to show his face in public, so he told us not to expose his identity," Kong Xia said with a smile. "Your magnificent Tang Corporation is really..." Qin Changlin forced a smile. Why do I feel that the name Magnificent Tang Corporation is somewhat familiar? I seem to have heard of it somewhere. Many people around him also looked confused upon hearing this, because many of them felt that the name Magnificent Tang Corporation was somewhat familiar. I remember now. The Magnificent Tang Corporation. The famous gold manager, Kong Xia, is the general manager of the Magnificent Tang Corporation. "Your Chief Kong?" a middle-aged man exclaimed. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on Kong Xia. Some people had a curious look on their faces, while others had a shocked look on their faces. I never thought that I'm so famous that I can be recognized in the wine tasting conference, Kong Xia said with a smile. "That's right. I'm Kong Xia. As for whether I'm the famous gold manager or not, I don't know." Qin Changlin was surprised and said, "No wonder. No wonder I feel that the name Magnificent Tang Corporation is somewhat familiar. It turns out that this is the company that Chief Kong is working for now. I used to think that this company was established by Chief Kong herself, but it turns out that she has a boss." Kong Xia inadvertently glanced at Tan Xiu, who had a faint smile on his face. She then said with a charming smile, "I have no choice. I was born to work for others. But now it's even worse. I've followed this boss, but he directly became a hands-off shopkeeper and pushed everything to me. Isn't this a good thing?" Qin Changlin laughed aloud. "Capable people do more work. This shows that your boss has a discerning eye for gold. He won't let a talent like you be buried and wasted. Speaking of which, all of us are really envious of him. Shortly after exchanging greetings, Qin Changlin and the others dispersed. But many liquor wholesalers came after hearing the news. Even the people in charge of the wine industry who came to attend the wine tasting conference also came to see the god's nectar. Many of them wanted to place an order at this time, but Kong Xia declined them one by one. Some observant people had quietly observed that Kong Xia had tactfully declined more than 20 liquor wholesalers in just over an hour. It was nearly noon. Kong Xia smiled and sat opposite Tan Xiao and said, "Boss, it's almost lunchtime. Do we want to have a working meal here? Or go out to eat? Do you want to reward us?" "Let's have a working meal here," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "I'll book a restaurant tonight and treat you to a big meal. I'll reward you then." Su Quan leaned on the wall at the side and grinned, "Big Boss Tang, I really admire you more and more now. Why didn't I find you so capable when you were a kid? Had I known it earlier, I would have hugged your thighs and followed behind your ass." "Fuck off." Tan Xiao scolded with a smile, "You're not a demigod, kid. How can you know what will happen in the future? Anyways, it's not too late now. As long as you work hard, I guarantee that you'll have a good life with me in the future." Su Quan grinned and said, "Then it's a deal. You'll definitely be satisfied with my performance in the future." "I'm very satisfied now," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Kong Xia, after we return to Star City, send someone to order 2 houses. Each of them is worth 2 million yuan. Give one to Su Quan and Su Ben. It's their welfare. Don't. Su Quan quickly waved his hand and said, "Tan Xiao, we may be brothers, but you don't need to give us special treatment. I'm fine with it. If you really give it to me, I'll gladly accept it. But don't you know Big Brother Ben's character? He won't accept it if you give it to him for free. If he doesn't accept it, how can I have the nerve to accept it? So, you can ask Chief Kong to raise our salaries and give us welfare. Just forget about the house." Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment. He recalled that Su Ben was an honest and stubborn person. He immediately forced a smile and said, "You're right. Big Brother Ben. Sai, forget it. Kong Xia, did you hear Su Quan's words? If they perform well in the future, give them more rewards." "No problem." Kong Xia could feel the brotherhood between Tan Xiao and Su Quan, so she nodded with a smile. After lunch, Tan Xiao continued to stay here. Although he was the boss and there was no need for him here, he had nothing else to do anyway, so he stayed here to see the situation. He accompanied Kong Xia and Su Quan and chatted with them, which made him happy. This afternoon, the magnificent Tang Corp's God's Nectar had been spread like wildfire and everyone knew about it. All the guests who came to the wine tasting conference had come here. There were even a dozen people who wanted to place an order on the spot, but Kong Xia declined them. However, through today's situation, whether it was Kong Xia, Su Quan, or Tan Xiao, all of them were clear about one thing. The reputation of the God's Nectar had been established. Chapter 368. Night fell. In the bustling metropolis of Shanghai, tens of thousands of lights were lit up. At the Everlasting Feast Hall's branch in Shanghai, Qinan was quietly leaning on the counter, lazily fiddling with the mobile phone in her hand. "Chief Qi, someone is looking for you." A waiter came over with a plate. "Who's looking for me?" Qinan casually looked up and asked. The waiter pointed to the back and said, "It's that boy. He said he wants a private room, but all the private rooms in our restaurant are full." Qinan looked over and her expression slightly changed. A bright smile appeared on her gorgeous face. After seeing that the person was Tan Xiao, she then said to the waiter, "Immediately clean up the VIP lounge on the 4th floor. Prepare the best wine after the wine, and prepare the dishes according to the VIP treatment. Go quickly." The waiter was stunned. He turned to look at Tan Xiao and the others with a surprised expression and then trotted away. Qinan came to the front of Tang Xiao and the others with a smile. Although she had clearly seen Kong Xia's stunning appearance and was somewhat surprised inside, she still smiled and said, "Welcome, boss. Do you need a private room?" "Qinan, arrange a VIP lounge on the 4th floor for us," Tan Xiao said with a smile. They're all our people. Chi Nan stared blankly for a moment before immediately replying with a smile, I've already sent someone to prepare it, boss. Tan Xiao nodded with a smile and said, let me introduce you. This is Kong Xia, the general manager of the Magnificent Tang Corporation. This is Su Quan, my brother who grew up with me and now works in the Magnificent Tang Corporation. She's Chi Nan, the manager of the Everlasting Feast Halls branch in Shanghai. Hello, Kong Xia. Chi Nan extended her hand and said with a smile, you can call me Sister Nan, and since we're on the same side, how about I call you Xia Xia? Kong Xia hesitated for a moment before shaking hands with Chi Nan. She then nodded and looked at Tan Xiao and asked with a confused expression, what's going on, boss? I'm the Magnificent Tang Corporation's boss and also the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss. Tan Xiao said with a smile. It's that simple. Kong Xia was surprised. Are you really the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss? How was this possible? As far as I know, the Everlasting Feast Hall has been established for decades. Tan Xiao waved his hand to interrupt her words and said with a faint smile, there are some things that you are not clear about now. Perhaps you will know in the future. Alright, let's not talk about this. This time, our god's nectar was able to cause a sensation in the wine tasting conference, indicating that it will soon become famous. I'll celebrate your victory in advance. Seeing that Tan Xiao no longer said anything, Kong Xia also refrained from asking any further. To her, being able to be together with Tan Xiao was already a pleasant surprise. The VIP lounge on the 4th floor. Under Chi Nan's lead, they entered the spacious VIP lounge. Su Quan's eyes widened as he sized up the interior. He then came to the window and looked at the bustling street outside. He couldn't help but sigh, this is too luxurious. I've been to many restaurants, but this is the first time I've been to such a luxurious restaurant. This is the VIP lounge of our Everlasting Feast Hall, said Chi Nan with a smile. Except for a few VIPs of the Everlasting Feast Hall, as well as our own people, outsiders are not allowed to come here. It seems that we've taken advantage of Big Boss. Su Quan said with a smile. At this time, the employees of the Magnificent Tang Corporation were also a bit shocked. Although they knew that Tan Xiao was the big boss of the Magnificent Tang Corporation, they knew very little about this hands-off boss. Now, they finally understood that it was not that their big boss didn't care about the company's situation, but that his business was not limited to the Magnificent Tang Corporation. He was simply too busy. Have a seat. Tan Xiao waved his hand and said with a smile. Kong Xia quickly pulled a chair for Tan Xiao and then sat next to Tan Xiao with a smile. Chi Nan didn't take a seat, but said, Boss, Elder Ji has arrived in Shanghai. She didn't inform you because she learned that you went to Guangyang a few days ago. You see, when will you have the time to see her? Tan Xiao thought for a moment and said, tell her to wait. The person I'm waiting for hasn't arrived in Shanghai yet. I'll contact her when she arrives. Alright. Chi Nan nodded with a faint smile. Quickly. The Everlasting Feast Hall's fine wine and dishes were delivered one after another. The fragrant aroma of the dishes and rice made everyone's appetite whet. This meal lasted for a full 2 hours before it ended. During the banquet, Kong Xia drank a little bit of wine. Her beautiful face was flushed red, making her look even more lovable and adorable. Boss, can you accompany me to stroll around Shanghai's night scene? After leaving the restaurant, Kong Xia followed Tan Xiao and whispered. Alright. Tan Xiao didn't refuse. Kong Xia was his trusted confidant, so he could satisfy her request. After sending Su Quan and the others away, Tan Xiao looked at Chi Nan and said with a smile, go back and busy yourself. I'll take Kong Xia to stroll around. Chi Nan looked at Kong Xia with a strange expression and asked with a smile, Boss, how about you drive my car away? No need. Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, I've drunk some wine. Although driving is not a problem, it's still drunk driving. Let's take a taxi. All right. Chi Nan replied and turned around to walk toward the restaurant. Tan Xiao then looked at Kong Xia and smilingly asked, where do you want to go? When I first arrived in Shanghai, I strolled around with my classmates. It's a metropolis after all, so it's very good. How about going to the Bund? Kong Xia laughed. I want to see the night scene of Huangpu River. That's right, it would be even better if we can take a passenger boat to visit Huangpu River at night. All right. Tan Xiu nodded. After stopping a taxi, the duo quickly arrived at the Huangpu River passenger boat ticket office. After buying the boat tickets, they accompanied Kang Xia to tour the Huangpu River before they left the boat and returned to the shore. Amidst the crowd, Kang Xia and Tan Xiu walked side by side. Finally, Kang Xia hesitated for a moment before she grabbed Tan Xiu's wrist. Tan Xiu glanced at her and lightly smiled. You seem to have a question that you haven't asked yet. You also want to know how I became the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss? What I want to ask is not how you became the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss, but that you and Qi Nan seem to have an unusual relationship, said Kang Xia with a smile. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing and said, Are you suspecting that we have a relationship between a man and a woman? No, said Kang Xia. How should I say it? You two seem to be very close, and she respects you very much. That kind of respect doesn't seem to be superficial, but comes from the bottom of her heart. Even though she hides it very well in front of you, she occasionally reveals a trace of flattery, which I can still observe. The smile on Tan Xiu's face slowly disappeared. He stood at the Huangpu River's bank, overlooking the reflection of the lights on the river's surface and calmly said, Kang Xia, you're very observant. But didn't you notice that her attitude toward you is somewhat unusual? I did. It's not like she's seeing me for the first time. Instead, it's like we're old friends, said Kang Xia. That's what I can't figure out. Tang Xiu turned around and looked at her face. He looked at her sparkling eyes that were rippling with a watery halo and seriously said, How's the cultivation technique I imparted to you? I haven't sensed the kind of aura you mentioned, said Kang Xia. You haven't sensed that kind of aura, but she has cultivated true qi, said Tan Xiu. Although she has yet to embark on the real cultivation path, she may be able to learn it in the future. All the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall are our own people. What I said about our own people is that my orders are above everything else. Even if I order them to commit suicide in front of me, they will immediately carry it out. Kang Xia was shaken inwardly. She looked at Tan Xiu in disbelief and asked, Boss, are there still such loyal people in this world? They're different, said Tan Xiu. Their lives don't just belong to them. Kang Xia shook her head and said, I don't agree with you, boss. Their lives are in their hands, and their future path is also theirs to walk. How could it be like what you said? Their path has actually come to an end, Tan Xiu interrupted her and confidently said, Unless they grow old in obscurity, they must follow my footsteps with vigor. I'll give them their future path, and their lives must be loyal to me. You'll give it to them? Kang Xia was surprised. Did you forget what I told you when I taught you the cultivation technique? Tang Xiu chuckled. Did you forget what I told you when I taught you the cultivation technique? Becoming stronger can prolong your life. If they can cultivate to the realm I'm looking forward to, their future life will be very long. Not only them, but you as well. Ever since you learned the cultivation method I taught you, your life has been mine. Kang Xia was silent for a moment before she suddenly smiled and said, My soul and body are yours. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He suddenly recalled the scene of ecstasy with Kang Xia, and his lower abdomen suddenly turned hot. Kang Xia, Tan Xiu opened his mouth. Kang Xia raised her jade-like finger and gently covered Tan Xiu's lips. She chuckled and said, I know. You said that you can't give me the identity of a normal husband and wife. But I don't mind it. I'll be satisfied as long as I can occupy a place in your heart. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He reached out to hug her shoulder and said, Let's not talk about this. Let's go to other places. Kang Xia nodded slightly and didn't speak again. A strange light flashed in her eyes, and no one knew what she was thinking. After a long while, Kang Xia then whispered, I know there's a shopping mall nearby. How about going with me to buy some clothes? All right, Tan Xiu said with a smile. Aside from buying clothes, is there anything else in that shopping mall? I'm going to buy a laptop. People will say that you're illiterate if you don't know anything about computers these days. You don't know anything about computers? Kong Xia asked in astonishment. Tan Xiao said, I can use it for simple operations, but not for difficult ones. I used to have computer classes in junior high and senior high school. But the things he learned at that time were all very shallow things. As a matter of fact, I haven't been using a smartphone for a long time. Today is the last day of quiet night's rest. Tomorrow we'll start courting death. Chapter 369. It's all right. Kong Xia said with a smile, I can teach you later if you want to learn something more difficult. By the way, are you going to buy a computer to play games? Or use it for work? Many laptops have different systems and configurations, so I need to know what you want to use it for. Study and work, Tan Xiao said. Kong Xia made an okay gesture and pulled Tan Xiao toward the nearby shopping mall. Shopping. It was a woman's nature. Although accompanying women to go shopping was the dream of countless single men, Tan Xiao really didn't like shopping. In the past, whenever he wanted to buy something, he would directly find out the place to buy it and then directly go there to buy it. However, Kong Xia was his right-hand woman, so he would try his best to satisfy her. Thus, Tan Xiao would never let her down. Have you been here before? I've been here twice, but I didn't find such a big shopping mall here. As the two entered the mall, Tan Xiao looked at the surrounding shops and the dazzling lineup of goods and asked curiously. I've been here at least 10 times, Kong Xia said with a smile. Tan Xiao suddenly understood and said with a smile, shopping is a woman's nature, and it seems you're no exception. Just buy whatever you like. Although I'm a thrifty person, I'm waiting to bleed tonight in order to reward you. Kong Xia was pleasantly surprised. Did you say that? You're not allowed to go back on your words. Tan Xiao nodded and said, a gentleman's word is as good as a whip. A smile hung on the corner of Kong Xia's mouth as she repeatedly nodded. Suddenly, her expression slightly stagnated and her brows furrowed in an instant. A look of disgust flashed in her eyes. Let's go there. Kong Xia pulled Tan Xiao's arm and walked toward another direction. Miss Tang, please wait. A hearty laughter came from not far away. Immediately after, two young men ran over. Tan Xiao and Kong Xia stopped. Kong Xia forced a smile and said, Boss, we've run into trouble. This fly is a bit special. A fly? Tan Xiao was stunned. What surprised him even more was that the person running toward him turned out to be someone he knew. Miss Kong, I didn't expect to meet you here. My sister mentioned you to me yesterday. I heard that you're coming to Shanghai for some business, so I have to entertain you well. Li Zhen still maintained his elegant demeanor with a bright smile on his handsome face. His eyes were fixated on Kong Xia and he didn't even spare a glance at Tan Xiao who was standing beside Kong Xia. Kong Xia said, Help me thank your sister for her kindness. I'm here on business this time. If time permits, I'll have a gathering with her. But if time is tight, then there's nothing I can do. Also, we still have something to do, so we'll take our leave first. Saying that, she grabbed Tan Xiao and was about to leave. Li Zhen hastily called out, Miss Kong, it's rare to meet you here, let me treat you. Suddenly, his words came to an abrupt halt. Because at this moment he glanced at Tan Xiao. But this one glance made all the words he wanted to say swallow back into his stomach. Tan Xiao indifferently looked at Li Zhen and slowly said, There's a saying that enemies often cross each other's path. I didn't believe it before, but now I do. Let me give you a piece of advice. Kong Xia is my woman, so don't mess around her if you don't have any serious business. You're on your own now. Li Zhen's expression turned particularly unsightly. He looked at the astonished Tan Xiao and angrily said, Surname Tang, how come you're everywhere? Don't think that I have to walk around you just because of our agreement. Believe it or not. Tan Xiao interrupted him and lightly asked, Do you believe it or not? Do you want to force me to deal with you? Or do you want to force me to deal with your Li family? You're not young anymore, so you should grow your brain. Don't court disaster for your Li family. After saying that, Tan Xiao grabbed Kong Xia's hand and walked toward the distance. Li Zhen's expression constantly changed. Finally, he looked at the back of Tan Xiao and Kong Xia as they left. An unwilling expression was revealed in his eyes. He had yet to investigate Tan Xiao's identity and background, so he didn't dare to act rashly. Xiaoya, call Yu Ji and tell him that you've seen Tan Xiao in this mall. Yu Ji's hatred for Tan Xiao is very strong. I'm afraid he'll rush here to retaliate. Li Zhen loosened his fist as he thought of a way to kill with a borrowed knife. He immediately whispered. All right. The young man nodded. On the second floor of the mall, at the electronic mall, Tan Xiao calmly held Kang Xia's hand and asked, "From what you just said, you should know Li Zhen's sister, right?" The moment Kang Xia's hand was grabbed by Tan Xiao, the smile on her face never faded. Especially when Tan Xiao said that Kang Xia was his woman, it made her feel as though she had eaten honey. Upon hearing his inquiry, Kang Xia replied with a smile, "Yeah, I know his sister." "You just said that, Fly. Is he pursuing you?" Tan Xiao said with a smile. "There are many men who pursue me, but I don't like them." Kang Xia laughed. "I don't think there's any man better than you in the world." "Boss, you and Li Zhen seem to know each other, no? Did you have a conflict with him before?" "It's just a small conflict." "It's nothing," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Tell me, what's going on?" asked Kang Xia curiously. Tan Xiao glanced at her and said, "When I first came to Shanghai, I had a meal with several friends in the Everlasting Feast Hall. Since I was bored, I followed Qi Nan to the neighboring city to participate in an underground car race. At that time, my opponents were Li Zhen and a professional racer he invited from Hong Kong. In the end, I won. Not only did he lose money, but he also promised me a condition. That is, he must stay far away from me whenever I appear. Another thing is that he and a classmate of mine have a little conflict. They had a quarrel a few days ago because they met each other. One of his followers was taught a lesson by me for speaking rudely." Kang Xia suddenly understood and said with a smile, "The Li family is quite a powerful family in Shanghai. Although they're not even in the top 10, they're still quite good. Their family business has been flourishing since Li Zhen's sister, Li Dan, took over. On the contrary, this Li Zhen is a typical second-generation nouveau riche. He's a good-for-nothing character that even his sister is worried about." "I knew he's a good-for-nothing the first time I saw him," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "This kind of person has a common problem, that is, he exudes the aura of money. Even if I don't know much about luxury jewelry, I dare say that his outfit is worth tens of thousands of yuan." Kang Xia couldn't help laughing and said, "You're wrong, boss. Li Zhen's outfit is worth at least hundreds of thousands yuan. That's not counting the Dan Seaton watch he wears on his wrist, which is worth more than 1,000,000 yuan. It seems that I have a lot of knowledge to popularize," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Well, I'll teach you if you serve me well tonight." Kang Xia said with a laugh. "I'm an expert in this field." Hee. Upon hearing the word, serve, Tan Xiao couldn't help but recall the night of ecstasy. He was a man with a normal physiology, so he naturally had that kind of need. However, he was a casual person and didn't like to be restricted. Coupled with the woman who had betrayed him in the immortal world, it caused him to have a resistance toward women deep inside his heart. "If you want it, just do it. Why do you care so much?" This voice sounded inside Tan Xiao's heart. The way he looked at Kang Xia also changed a bit. Kang Xia took Tan Xiao to look at several laptops in the electronic mall and finally bought a laptop that Tan Xiao liked. It had the highest configuration and cost more than 5 digits. Immediately after, the duo took their laptop bags and went to the 4th, 5th, and 6th floors to stroll around. The clothing specialty stores in this shopping mall were all high-end stores. Many of them were world-famous brands, and the prices made Tan Xiao somewhat helpless. As a result, Kang Xia bought him several sets in the name of buying clothes. She even bought a lot of shoes, socks, and underwear. As for herself, she strolled around for a long time, yet she didn't buy anything. When it came to the checkout, it was Kang Xia who rushed to pay the bill every time and simply didn't let him pay out of his own pocket. After a dispute, it finally ended in failure, so Tan Xiao just let her be. There's still a men's clothing store in front. Let's go to the women's clothing store." Tan Xiao quickly said after seeing that Kang Xia still wanted to buy clothes for him. Kang Xia looked at the bag in Tan Xiao's hand. She then nodded with a reluctant expression and said with a smile, "Boss, do you know that your figure is like a natural clothes hanger? You look good in any clothes you wear. Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, will you die if you don't flatter me? Give me a children's clothing. I guarantee I won't be able to wear it. Ah, Kang Xia laughed again and again. Half an hour later, when Kang Xia finally picked a beautiful dress, Tan Xiu paid the bill and was pulled downstairs by Kang Xia. You're not shopping anymore? You only bought one. Tan Xiu was surprised. One is enough. Kang Xia said with a smile. I don't lack clothes. Although I'm pulling you to go shopping, it's better to say that you accompany me to go shopping. It doesn't matter if I buy clothes or not. All right, let's go then, Tan Xiu said with a smile. At the entrance of the commercial building, Yuji stood at the street corner not far away, leaning against the wall and smoking a cigarette. A chilling light flashed in his eyes as he constantly glanced at the building's entrance. Behind him, there were 4 strong men with bulging waists, all carrying knives. Qing Yi, remember me well. You can't take his life, but you must make him bleed. It's best if you cut the tendons in his hands. Yuji turned his head and glanced at a big man with a golden chain behind him as he spoke in a deep voice. Young Master Yu, you can put your heart at ease. That brat dared to offend you, young Master Yu. He's courting death. I'll cut the tendons in his hands and feet so that young Master Yu can vent your anger. Yuji nodded and said, although there are a lot of people outside the building, you don't need to worry about it. Just hurry up and there won't be any problems. If there really is a problem, I have acquaintances in the Public Security Bureau who can bail you out when the time comes. Brothers and sisters, cast your recommendation votes and monthly votes. Starting tomorrow, Jingye will start to pay the debt of monthly votes and updates. Chapter 370. At the entrance of the building, just as Tan Xiu came out with Kang Xia, he found that the surrounding situation was a bit strange. Some malicious gazes were constantly lingering on him. With just a few glances, he found at least 20 youths in strange outfits, dressed like hooligans, slowly approaching him. Just follow me closely. Don't be afraid no matter what happens. Tan Xiu squeezed Kang Xia's hand and said with a calm expression, what's going on? Kang Xia asked with a confused expression. Tan Xiu pouted and lightly said, some insignificant people want to find trouble with us. I'm afraid this matter is related to that surnamed Li Zhen. Kang Xia looked at the direction where Tang Xiu's mouth was pouting. She immediately saw 4 or 5 youths dressed like hooligans staring at them. There were also a lot of youths dressed in the same attire surrounding them from other directions. Boss, we're in public now. It's a very bustling block. They shouldn't dare to be too arrogant, right? Kang Xia asked in a low voice with some fear inside her heart. They're not the main culprits, Tan Xiu said indifferently. There's someone behind them, so it's possible for them to act in such an environment. So, just stay by my side. I don't care about these hooligans and hooligans. In a flash, Tan Xiu released his spiritual sense and clearly observed everyone's every move within a radius of 200 to 300 meters. Huh! Tan Xiu furrowed his brows because he found an acquaintance. It was the guy who was with Li Zhen at the entrance of Demon City University and spoke rudely to him and got beaten up by him. Furthermore, he observed with his spiritual sense that the 4 big men behind that guy were also quickly rushing toward his location. Huh! Tan Xiu once again found an acquaintance. It was Li Zhen whom he and Kang Xia had just bumped into, and the gloating youth next to him. The 2 of them were not with the guy he had just beaten but were hiding in the window on the 3rd floor of the opposite building. Poor guy, he must have been used. The thought flashed in Tang Xiu's mind. He then took out his mobile phone and said, Qi Nan, investigate the details of the Li family in Shanghai. The more detailed the better. Since Kang Xia is a good sister of the Li family's eldest miss, Li Dan, we can go visit the Li family. In the Everlasting Feast Hall's branch in Shanghai, Qi Nan was watching the 2 arowanas in the bathtub with a bored expression. She received a call from Tan Xiu and could hear the chill in his voice. Her eyes immediately lit up and she said aloud, Boss, please wait for my news. At the latest, I'll be able to investigate the Li family situation in half an hour. Are you coming now? Or should I go look for you? Tan Xiu said, I'll find you later. All right. Qi Nanxing hung up the phone in a hurry. Immediately after, she made one call after another, and the Everlasting Feast Hall's intelligence system was fully activated. All the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall began to gather information about the Li family in Shanghai through various channels and networks. On the bustling street, Tan Xiu looked at the young thugs surrounding him. His eyes finally locked on Qing Yi and the three big men around him, especially Qing Yi and the man on his right. Both of them had guns on their waists instead of knives. Before we start, can you tell me the name of the guy in the corner of the street? Tan Xiu looked at Qing Yi and lightly asked. Qing Yi stared blankly for a moment. Then he raised his brows and sneered, "Brat, you're quite powerful, aren't you? You even know that young Master Yu wants to clean you up. Since you found out, then you must have heard of the Shanghai Media Group, right? Young Master Yu is the young master of the Media Group. If you know what's good for you, why don't you come with us?" "I thought you'd do it here," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "No problem. I'll go with you. It's best if we find a secluded place. Am I right?" The smile on Qing Ye's face disappeared and was replaced with a solemn expression. He looked at Tan Xiu's calm appearance and felt a bit apprehensive inside. "Brat, what kind of gang are you from?" Tan Xiu said with a chuckle. "It seems you're not stupid. You know to ask about my background. However, Yuji sent you here, yet he doesn't dare to come. That means he's afraid of me." "He's afraid of me, but you're not? You don't know me." Qing Yi frowned. He subconsciously looked at the place where Yuji was hiding. After being silent for a while, he sneered and said, "Brat, don't put on an act. Provoking young Master Yu is your bad fate. Also, we won't touch the woman next to you. But tell her to be careful and not to take out things she shouldn't take, such as a mobile phone." Tan Xiu looked at Kong Xia and asked with a smile, "Do you believe me?" Kong Xia was indeed a bit worried. But seeing that the other party didn't rush to make a move and seemed to have a trace of fear, she immediately smiled and shook her head. "Of course not. Boss, I saw the scene when you brought people to the Rising Dragon Martial School to pick a fight. Relying on these guys, I'm afraid they won't end up better than those people from the Rising Dragon Martial School." "Boss? The Rising Dragon Martial School?" Cheng Ye's brows furrowed again. The dread he felt toward Tang Xiu at this moment increased a bit. He was able to mix in a metropolis like Shanghai. Naturally, he was not a fool. On the contrary, he was very smart. He knew that there were some people he could provoke and some he couldn't afford to provoke. Otherwise, a disaster would befall him. "Let's go. Let's talk somewhere else." Qing Yi thought for a moment. He felt that he was scared and immediately felt a bit angry and ashamed. "Lead the way." Tan Xiu calmly said. Not far from the street corner, Yuji frowned with an angry look on his face. His intention was to let Qing Yi see Tan Xiu and immediately make a move, crippling Tan Xiu and then immediately withdraw. However, he unexpectedly chatted with Tan Xiu and didn't seem to want to make a move. A few minutes later, everyone came to a street that could be considered extremely quiet compared to the one they had just been on. Even Yuji cautiously followed them from behind. However, Yuji didn't notice that there were two sneaky figures behind them, staring at him, Qing Yi as well as Tan Xiu and the others. "Brat, tell me, who the hell are you?" Qing Yi and the others came here with Tan Xiu and Kong Xia, but they still didn't rush to make a move. Being cautious by nature, Tan Xiu lightly said, "You won't know my identity even if I tell you. If you're afraid, then get the hell out of here immediately. If you want to make a move, you can try. That's right, that brat Yuji has been secretly following us. If you don't dare to make a move now, tell him to come here." Qing Yi frowned and glanced at the back, but he didn't find Yuji's figure. After pondering for a moment, he nodded to a big man beside him. Then, the big man immediately ran to the back. Soon after, the big man saw Yuji at the street corner. He ran to Yuji's side and respectfully said, "Young Master Yu, our boss wants to see you." Yuji's complexion slightly changed and asked in a deep voice, "What's the situation?" "That surnamed Tang seems to have an unusual identity. Our boss is a bit afraid of him," said the big man. "Also, that surnamed Tang also noticed that you're following us, so he wants you to see him." Yuji's complexion changed. He took a deep breath and strode over. What the hell are you doing, Qingyi? I told you to make a move, so why are you dawdling? Qingyi glanced at Tan Xiu and didn't say anything. You're Yu Ji, right? Tan Xiu lightly smiled. You're the young master of the Maidu group, right? Yu Ji's complexion slightly changed and coldly said, How did you know? They told me. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Yu Ji angrily glared at Qingyi. Yu Ji, let's talk about our matter. Tan Xiu waved his hand. You were like a dog that followed Li Zhen at that time. You didn't feel the pain from being beaten by me, did you? Now you even dare to provoke me? You fucking court death. Yu Ji angrily shouted. Tan Xiu fiercely kicked Yu Ji, directly sending him flying 4 to 5 meters away. After his buttocks fell to the ground, he spurted out a mouthful of blood. At the side, Qingyi and his more than 20 men's complexion greatly changed. Qingyi didn't expect that this matter would actually involve Li Zhen. It must be noted that Li Zhen's identity and background were much stronger than Yu Ji's. But this guy in front of him didn't seem to be afraid of Li Zhen at all. Where did he come from? He even dared to continuously beat Yu Ji? He even dared to oppose young Master Li Zhen? Tan Xiu walked to the front of Yu Ji and gently kicked him with his foot. He lightly smiled and said, Don't worry. My kick won't kill you. What I want to know is, did you send someone to watch me tonight? Or did Li Zhen send you? Yu Ji endured the uncomfortable feeling coming from his internal organs and angrily shouted, This father and Li Zhen have broken up. He is him and I am me. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and smilingly said, So, how did you know that I was in the mall just now? It's impossible for you to have sent someone to follow me. If you really did, I would have found it long ago. It seems that someone called you, right? Even if it's not Li Zhen, it should be someone close to him. Yu Ji's complexion slightly changed as he angrily shouted, How did you know? It's very obvious. Tan Xiu leisurely said. I met Li Zhen in the mall before. There was also a young man with him. If it weren't for them, I would have really admired your remarkable ability. Yu Ji's brows tightly furrowed. He pondered for a moment and suddenly came to his senses. He struggled to crawl up from the ground and wiped the blood on the corner of his mouth. He turned around and glanced around, shouting, Li Zhen, you fucking tricked me. I, Yu Ji, will sever all ties with you in the future. I won't let this matter end with you. Tang Xiu released his spiritual sense and could clearly see that Li Zhen and the young man were secretly hiding about 200 meters away. However, he didn't want to deal with Li Zhen now. He would personally visit the Li family. If the Li family didn't restrain him, he would teach him a lesson in front of his parents. Today is the weekend. Quiet Night will stay at home and write at least 5 chapters. There's no upper limit. Brothers and sisters, please cheer up and vote for me. Chapter 371. Tan Xiu looked at Yu Ji with a bored expression. He really didn't feel like paying attention to such trivial matters. However, the feeling of being remembered by others was not a good one, just like Li Zhen. Immediately, he looked at Yu Ji and lightly asked, Let's not talk about Li Zhen first. He can't run away. Let's talk about our matter first, shall we? You brought these people to deal with me. I'm not that easy to bully. Yu Ji retreated 2 steps and shouted at Qingyi, Qingyi, why are you still staring blankly? Hit him. I want to see his blood. I want him to know how miserable his fate is if he hits me. Qingyi looked at Tan Xiu and said with a forced smile, Young master Yu, please don't drag us into the grudges between you big shots, all right? This brother is not even afraid of Li Zhen. We're just ants in his eyes. Please be merciful and spare us. Yu Ji nearly vomited blood after hearing Qingye's words. Kang Xia couldn't help but laugh while looking at Yu Ji's wonderful expression. At this moment, everyone looked at Kang Xia's flower-like smiling face and couldn't help but stare blankly. Tan Xiu held back his laughter as he looked at Qingyi and said, You're very smart and cautious. No matter where or when, only cautious people can live longer. In fact, according to your behavior today, you can be spared from death, but you can't escape punishment. But you didn't want to make things difficult for her, so I'm in a good mood to spare you this time. Remember, don't provoke me later, else I won't mind letting you die." After saying that, his figure flashed and instantly appeared in front of Yu Ji. Even though he only used less than 5% of his strength, it was enough to make Yu Ji scream again and again. Finally, Tan Xiao stepped on Yu Ji's right wrist, causing him to squeal like a pig being butchered. He then kicked him to the side and lightly said, "This is your last chance. Think about the consequences of failing to retaliate before you deal with me next time. You're you family, hee." Yu Ji angrily shouted, "What's so great about you knowing some martial arts? Don't be so arrogant, you'll suffer in the future." Tan Xiao shook his head and reached for his phone. After forcing Yu Ji to tell him the password, Tan Xiao found Li Zhen's phone number. After writing it down, Tan Xiao threw the phone on Yu Ji's body and turned to leave. When Cheng Yi and the 20 or so subordinates saw how Tan Xiao beat up Yu Ji, a trace of fear arose in their hearts. However, what scared them the most was not the scene of Tan Xiao beating up Yu Ji, but Tan Xiao's ghost-like speed and the smile he had when he broke Yu Ji's right wrist. Ruthless character. He was definitely a ruthless character. Cheng Yi suddenly rejoiced in his heart, rejoicing that he did not make a move tonight. He watched as Tan Xiao and Kang Xia left until they could no longer be seen. Then he carefully accompanied Tan Xiao to Yu Ji's side, who was rolling on the ground. He propped him up from the ground and asked with concern, "Young Master Yu, are you all right? I'll take you to the hospital myself." "Fuck off." Yu Ji pushed Cheng Yi away with his left hand and angrily said with a smile, "Cheng Yi, big bro Cheng, you're really good. You betrayed me before, and now you're even pretending to care about me. Don't you feel disgusted? Scram. Scram as far as you can. I don't want to see you ever again." Cheng Yi's expression was a bit unsightly. No matter what, he was a respected figure in Shanghai's underground forces. If it wasn't for Yu Ji being the young master of the Yu family, he wouldn't even look at him. Moreover, there were so many brothers around. Being scolded by them made him lose his face. "Young Master Yu, we brothers are giving you face, so we're willing to stand up for you. But you're too insincere. I'm afraid that surname Tang's background is not worse than your Yu family, right? You want us to beat him? Isn't this the same as pushing us brothers into a pit of fire? I won't haggle over today's matter, and we won't spread the news of you being beaten up. But you're on your own now." Cheng Yi said a few words and swaggered away with his brothers. Yu Ji clutched his stomach. His eyes were filled with flames of anger. He walked a few steps and reached out to support a nearby tree. He then took out his mobile and dialed a number. "You're good, Xia. You're using me as a knife in order to show off in front of Li Zhen, right? You're good. Remember this, we're not finished yet." Yu Ji angrily roared after the other party picked up the call. "Yu Ji, don't scare me. I'm a coward." The feeling of being beaten up is not good, right? If you have the time to show off in front of me, go to the hospital and get treated. In case you become disabled in the future or can't take care of yourself, your parents will be worried sick. In other words, if you die, we brothers will have to pool money to buy you a wreath. What a waste. The young man's teasing voice came from the phone, as if he didn't take Yu Ji's threat seriously. Yu Ji angrily roared, "You fucking ducker, just wait for me." Having said that, he fiercely smashed the phone. Not far away, Li Zhen retracted his gaze from Yu Ji, who was leaning on the tree. He looked at the smiling young man next to him and lightly said, "Xiaoya, you've gone a bit too far. We're indeed using Yu Ji, but we've been friends for so many years. Besides, I'm afraid Yu Ji has already lost his mind due to anger. You must remember that even a cornered rabbit will bite." The smile on the young man's face quickly disappeared. He silently nodded and said, "I'll keep it in mind. Don't worry. I'll be on guard against Yu Ji." Li Zhen raised his right hand and stroked his chin, looking pensive as he said, "Yu Ji is a waste." Not only did he fail to figure out Tan Xiao's background, but he also forced us to do so. I'm afraid this matter is a bit troublesome. It seems we really have to send people to carefully investigate Tan Xiao's identity. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep well. The young man was confused. We sent people to investigate Tan Xiao before. Haven't we already investigated him clearly? He's just a country bumpkin from a small place. He has a bit of ability and was admitted to Shanghai University. Do we need to be so afraid of him? You've investigated him clearly? Li Zhen sneered. Then tell me, what's the relationship between him and Qi Nan of the Everlasting Feast Hall? Why would she want to kill Huan Yu in the car race for him? I'm afraid this brat is not simple. We'd better be careful. The young man hesitated for a moment before he nodded. Then he suddenly said, Brother Zhen, there's something I don't understand. What is it? Asked Li Zhen. I don't get it. Why did Xing Yi bring so many people but didn't do anything to that Tang brat? Logically speaking, the original scene should have been Xing Yi and his 20 or so subordinates beating up that Tang guy. I know a bit about that Xing Yi. He's cautious by nature and never does anything he's not sure about. Li Zhen sneered. He didn't do anything because he doesn't know Tan Xiu's identity. On the other hand, he's probably related to Kong Xia. After all, a man who can get a top-notch woman like Kong Xia is probably not a simple man. The young man nodded and said, You're right. A top-notch woman like Kong Xia wouldn't have been able to keep her if she didn't have the ability. Even if that top-notch woman is dead set on following him, I'm afraid she'll bring a disaster to him. But why haven't I heard of this Tan Xiu's name before? Originally, I didn't want to use my connections in Shuangqing Province's Blue City. But now it seems that I have to. I have some friendship with those brats over there. If Tan Xiu is famous in Star City, I'm afraid those brats in Blue City will know about him. If they don't know about him, ding, ding, the cell phone in Li Zhen's pocket rang with a text message. When he took it out, he immediately frowned. The text message was sent by an unfamiliar cell phone number. The content was, I'll personally visit your Li family's patriarch in an hour. I advise you to go back immediately and explain to your elders in your family. Li Zhen's expression turned extremely gloomy. After pondering for a moment, he said in a deep voice, Let's go. We'll leave first. At the Everlasting Feast Hall in Shanghai, Qi Nan was standing at the entrance with a smile while holding a stack of documents. Behind her were 4 big men in black suits who were coldly glancing around. In less than half an hour, she had learned everything about the Li family through the Everlasting Feast Hall's intelligence channel. Even the matter that the Li family's patriarch kept 2 mistresses outside, one of whom even gave birth to an illegitimate child for him, was clearly written. Boss. Qi Nan saw a taxi parked nearby. Tan Xiu and Kong Xia got off the car and immediately trotted over. How's the investigation of the intelligence? Asked Tan Xiu. I've investigated everything clearly, said Qi Nan. It's all here. Also, the car is ready. We can leave at any time. Tan Xiu nodded and said, Let's go. I'll finish reading the documents on the way. All right. Qi Nan quickly made a gesture. Suddenly, 3 black Audi cars drove over and stopped beside them. After getting on the car, Tan Xiu sat in the back seat and quietly read the documents in his hand, whereas Kong Xia curiously looked at Qi Nan in the front passenger seat. If it weren't for Qi Nan's age, who should be in her 30s, she would be a bit worried that Qi Nan and Tan Xiu would have feelings for each other based on her beauty. Xia, are you curious about me? Qi Nan looked back at Kong Xia and asked with a smile. A trace of embarrassment appeared on Kong Xia's face, as though she was caught stealing something. After hesitating for a moment, she smiled and said, Yeah, Sis Nan is very beautiful and very capable. I'm a bit worried that boss will give my work to you in the future. Don't worry. I can't do your work, though I don't know what it is. Qi Nan said with a smile. Unless you can often go abroad to carry out various missions. Abroad? Missions? Kong Xia looked puzzled. Today's 2nd chapter will be released. Quiet Night will strive to return the monthly votes and chapters today. Chapter 372. Tan Xiu raised his head and glanced at Qi Nan. Then he lightly said, Kong Xia, don't listen to Qi Nan's nonsense. They're used to making a living among the dead, so they only have goals in their eyes. So, no one can take away your job. What? Kong Xia was shocked by Tan Xiu's words. Looking at the fashionable and beautiful Qi Nan, it was hard for her to think of Qi Nan in that aspect. She had been abroad for many years and held a very high position, so she naturally knew a lot of information that ordinary people could hardly access. That kind of people. They could be called killers or criminals, but they were most commonly known as mercenaries. Could it be Nan was a mercenary? In the front passenger seat, Nan said with a smile, "Boss, you really trust this female subordinate of yours a lot, don't you? No one else knows my identity except for the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall. You told her my identity just like that?" "She has already obtained that opportunity," said Tan Xiao calmly. The smile on Nan's face froze. Her eyes shifted to Kang Xia with unreserved envy. She wanted to obtain that opportunity even in her dreams, but the Everlasting Feast Hall had an internal rule that it would never be passed down unless one had made a great contribution to the restaurant. However, so far, only 7 people in the Everlasting Feast Hall were able to obtain this opportunity. Apart from the little boss, Gu Xiaoxue, and excluding the 4 business executives appointed by boss Tang Xiu, only Light and Dark had obtained it. However, she also guessed that the 2 brothers, Mo On and Mo, had also obtained that opportunity. That being said, aside from Big Boss Gu Yen and the mysterious Elder Ji, there were no more than 10 people in the entire Everlasting Feast Hall. And now, there was one more person. Tan Xiu calmly observed Nan's expression and said, "When the heaven is about to bestow a great responsibility on a man, it first tortures his mind, exhausts his muscles and bones, starves his body, empties his body, and throws his actions into disorder. Therefore, it tempts the heart to be patient and increases the impossible." This is my favorite sentence in the Mencius Geozixia. Nan pondered for a moment before she slowly nodded and said, "I understand your meaning, boss." Tan Xiu nodded slightly and flipped through the information in his hands again. Shanghai Punang District. Zhenfan Villa District, Villa B12. Li Haoran was wearing pajamas as he quietly leaned on the sofa and flipped through a document. Recently, he had been living very comfortably. Most of the Li Group's business had been handed over to his daughter, Li Dan, to handle. Furthermore, the company's performance was booming, which made him very relaxed. However, although his daughter was very capable, he still had to control the overall situation to prevent any problems from arising. "Dad, you haven't rested yet?" Li Zhen played with the car keys as he walked into the villa. Li Haoran rolled his eyes, feeling a headache coming on. His heart was filled with helplessness towards his son. Ever since he was young, he had been spoiled rotten by his mother. Now, he was ignorant and incompetent. Even if she reprimanded him, he would turn a deaf ear to it. "Little Zhen, come and sit." Li Haoran still wanted to have a good talk with his son. If this went on, he was afraid that his precious son would be crippled. Li Zhen sat down opposite Li Haoran. He crossed his legs and said, "Dad, what do you want to say?" "I want to talk about your work," said Li Haoran. "Our Li family is a big family with a big business. Those uncles of yours are eagerly eyeing us. Although your sister is very hardworking, she is, after all, a girl. In the future, the Li family's business will be handed over to you sooner or later." "Dad?" Li Zhen opened his mouth. Li Haoran waved his hand to interrupt him and said, "Little Zhen, I know what you want to say. But you can't just idle away your days like this, can you? I'm thinking that our Li Group has an advertising company. I want to hand over this advertising company to you. Regardless of your business situation, it's mainly to let you hone your skills and become a useful talent in the future." "Dad, the home appliance company you handed over to me before has already been closed down by me." Li Zhen forced a smile. "Now you want to hand over an advertising company to me. Even if our family's business is big, I can't afford to toss it around like this, right? Besides, I know my own situation. I'm not cut out to do business." An angry expression appeared on Li Haoran's face as he said in a deep voice, "You can learn if you don't know, and you can ask if you don't understand. Let your sister help you with the big ideas, but you can experience the small things yourself. I believe you can do it with your sister's help." Li Zhen hesitated for a long while before he forced a smile and said, All right. Since you want me to go to that advertising company, then I'll go there. But can you give me some time? I just caused some trouble and I need to solve it first." "What trouble?" asked Li Haoran with raised brows. "It's nothing, actually," said Li Zhen. He's a student at Shanghai University. His identity and origin are very mysterious. I've sent people to investigate him for several days, but they haven't found out anything about him. Tonight, that brat Yuji was beaten by that guy. I used some tricks behind his back, wanting Yuji to probe him. But the result was that waste Yuji. Not only did he fail to probe that guy's details, but he even got beaten up. Li Haoran shook his head and smilingly said, "You little guys are just like us when we were young. Can't you just calm down? So be it. I'll send little Li to investigate that guy's situation tomorrow. If possible, I'll help you solve this matter." "Let me solve this trivial matter myself, Dad." Li Zhen laughed. "Don't worry, I won't take it lightly. Besides, this is also the time for me to prove my ability, right?" Li Haoran couldn't help laughing. Just as he was about to speak, his mobile phone on the table suddenly rang. "Why is old Gu calling me so late?" Li Haoran muttered. After he picked up the phone, a smile appeared on his face as he said, "Brother Gu, it's already so late, yet you haven't slept yet? Brother Li, you're really forgetful, aren't you? We've made an appointment to play cards, yet you haven't come yet. Don't tell me you've already fallen asleep? Look at my brain. I've been so bored recently that my brain isn't working well. All right, I'll go there immediately. Let's go to your place. Clean up your chest room and prepare some good tea for us." "All right." He hung up the phone. Li Haoran looked at Li Zhen and said with a smile, "Your Uncle Gu and the others are coming to our place to play cards. The maids are resting, so you go clean up the chest room. Also, take out some good tea leaves from my study and make a pot of tea for us." "No problem," said Li Zhen with a smile. He got up and walked a few steps toward the stairs. Suddenly, he recalled something and stopped. He then turned his head and said, "Dad, there's something I forgot to tell you. That brat guessed that I wanted to kill him with a borrowed knife and ordered Yuji to deal with him, so he sent me a text message." "What did he send?" asked Li Haoran with a frown. Li Zhen returned to Li Haoran's front. He took out his mobile phone and opened the text message, saying, "This is the text message he sent me." After reading it, a sneer appeared on Li Haoran's face as he lightly said, "Since he wants to visit, then let him come. Call the residential security and tell them. If that guy comes, tell them to directly let him go." "All right." Li Zhen put away his mobile phone and replied before heading to the second floor. Li Haoran looked at Li Zhen's back as he left and secretly shook his head. However, he didn't care about Tan Xiu's threat. In his view, Tan Xiu was just bluffing. If he dared to come to his Li family, it would be very difficult for him to go out safely. 20 minutes later, at the entrance of the villa complex, the residential security directly let Tan Xiu through after learning his identity. Shortly after, the car arrived outside the B12 villa courtyard. As the door was opened by Qi Nan, Tan Xiu walked out and looked at the surrounding environment. He secretly nodded. This villa complex was very upscale. Not only was the surrounding environment beautiful, but there were also surveillance cameras everywhere and a lot of security guards patrolling nearby. "Knock on the door," Tan Xiu calmly said. Immediately, under Qi Nan's instruction, a strong man walked to the door and rang the doorbell. After a while, the electric gate of the villa courtyard was opened as two middle-aged men in suits with grim expressions came out. One of them slightly furrowed his brows when he saw the lineup outside and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" "Tell Li Haoran that our boss is here to visit," said Qi Nan coldly. "Is your boss surnamed Tang?" The middle-aged man frowned. "That's right," said Qi Nan. The middle-aged man directly stepped aside and lightly said, "Our boss ordered us to directly enter if you come." Tang Xiu glanced at him. The moment he stepped into the courtyard, he saw that there were 4 strong men in the courtyard, all of whom were looking at him with malicious intentions. However, after seeing the people around Tan Xiu, the 4 men's complexion changed and turned a lot more solemn. Tan Xiu stepped into the door and instantly saw Li Haoran sitting on the sofa in the living room, who had changed into casual clothes. "Boss Li is so elegant. You still have the time to drink tea here so late." Li Haoran looked at Tan Xiu. When he saw Kang Xia, Qi Nan, and the 4 black-clothed men following Tan Xiu, he slightly frowned. While trying to figure out Tan Xiu's identity, he stood up and said, I'm going to play cards with some friends later, so I'm waiting for them. You're Tan Xiu? Tan Xiu didn't rush to answer him, but stood in the hall and observed the environment inside. After about a minute or two, his eyes fell on Li Haoran and sighed, what a good house. Even compared to the place I live, it's not inferior at all. Boss Li is really capable, but it's a pity that he gave birth to a prodigal son. Li Haoran squinted his eyes and indifferently said, you haven't answered my question yet. Tan Xiu pointed to himself and smilingly said, me? What question do you want me to answer? You? Li Zhen was furious. He didn't expect Tan Xiu to be so arrogant. Chapter 373. Looking at the angry Li Haoran, Tan Xiu deliberately showed a look of sudden realization. He directly sat on the sofa opposite him and smilingly said, I just remembered that you just asked me if I'm called Tan Xiu. That's right, I'm called Tang Xiu. I won't change my name or my surname. Li Haoran coldly smiled and gestured to a big man standing behind him. The big man immediately took a teacup and poured a cup for Tan Xiu. You're a guest. Have some tea. Glancing at the teacup, Tan Xiu gave a thumbs up and praised, Patriarch Li is really gracious. I behaved so arrogantly, yet you're still willing to invite me to have some tea. It seems like I'll have to learn self-restraint from Patriarch Li in the future. Mr. Tang must be joking, said Li Haoran lightly. I don't dare to be the patriarch of the Li family. I'm just a man of my word. You don't even dare to be the patriarch? Tan Xiu was surprised. Am I overestimating your Li family? As far as I know, the real big families in the country have their own patriarchs. Mr. Tang, there's a saying that it's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Li Haoran sneered and said, I know why you're here and the conflict between you and my son. I'm talking to you in a good tone, so don't be so sarcastic. If it's my son's fault in this matter, I'll make him bow his head and admit his mistake. But if it's you who bullied others, I won't let it go. Tan Xiu's expression changed. The moment he straightened his body, he sneered and said, I just praised you for being gracious, yet you turned into an angry lion in the blink of an eye? Not to mention that it's your son's fault, even if I'm the one who bullied others, what can you do to me? You? Li Haoran was furious. What about me? Tan Xiu sneered. Do you think your Li family is so big that you can indulge your eldest son's arrogance? Bullying others? He provoked me this time. If it were someone else, I'm afraid your Li family would be even more arrogant, no? Don't be so insolent, Tan Xiu. Li Zhen came down from the second floor and strode toward Tan Xiu and angrily shouted. Tan Xiu observed Li Zhen and sighed. It turns out that the main character is here. Your father is backing you up, which makes me very unhappy. Li Zhen, tell me, was tonight's play of killing with a borrowed knife interesting? If it's interesting, the very, very boring me has to learn from you. Li Zhen feigned ignorance. I don't know what you're talking about. A smile outlined on the corner of Tang Xiu's mouth as he lightly said, Do you know why I didn't call you out when I cleaned up Yu Ji tonight? Because I wanted to come to your house and meet your father. I wanted to see what kind of person he was to be able to give birth to such a stupid son like you. Zhen was Li. Then was Li. Li Haoran raised his hand to interrupt Li Zhen. His eyes stared fixedly at Tang Xiu as he said in a deep voice, Mr. Tang, please watch your words. Don't think you can be arrogant in my Li family just because you brought a few people with you. What I heard from my son's mouth wasn't entirely true. Tell me, the reason for your enmity? Just now. From Tan Xiu's words, he heard something that made him secretly startled. His eldest son? There were no more than 5 people in the world who knew that he had 2 sons. He couldn't figure out how Tan Xiu knew about it. Li Haoran, right? Tan Xiu waved and said, Don't play dumb with me. You know what kind of person your son is. I'm here to ask for an explanation. If you can't satisfy me, I'll kill you. What can you do if I don't satisfy you? Li Haoran sneered. Who has the guts to come to the Li family in the middle of the night to make trouble? A voice came from outside the door. Immediately after, 3 middle-aged men entered the room surrounded by 5 or 6 bodyguards. Li Haoran slightly furrowed his brows, a bit of shame and annoyance in his eyes. His old friends came to play cards, only to run into some troublemakers, which made him feel ashamed. Brother Gu, Brother Chen, Brother Gao. I didn't expect you to arrive so soon. It's just a trivial matter. I'll send them away later and then go to the chess room to play a few games with you. How about you wait for me in the chess room first? Li Haoran got up to greet them and said. The eyes of the three middle-aged men simultaneously fell on Tan Xiu. In a flash, one of the middle-aged men's complexion changed. As if he didn't hear Li Haoran's words, he strode toward Tan Xiu. With a smile on his face, he stretched out his hand and said, I didn't expect to see Brother Tang here today. No wonder the magpies were singing all day today. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He didn't expect to see an acquaintance here. And this acquaintance turned out to be Gu Changmin, the owner of Dingshan Media, who had placed an order with him without knowing anything about the god's nectar. He stood up. Tan Xiu shook hands with Gu Changmin and lightly smiled. I'm also a bit surprised. I didn't expect that Brother Gu would come to the Li family late at night to play cards. What a good mood. I've been idle lately and have nothing to do, said Gu Changmin with a smile. I have some money in my hands, but I don't know what to do. How about you take me with you, Brother Tang? Let me make a small fortune with you. Brother Gu, you're joking. You're a big businessman. How could you take a fancy to my small business? Said Tan Xiu. You're too modest, Brother Tang, said Gu Changmin with a straight face. Brother Miao has told me a lot of things about you. I, Gu Changmin, don't admire many people in my life, but I admire you from the bottom of my heart. Let's not talk about anything else. Just the big project you're doing in Star City is something I can't catch up with. Tan Xiu faintly smiled. He had some understanding of Miao Wen'eng and believed that he wouldn't say anything about his identity as a cultivator. Brother Gu is overpraising me. Since you're here to play cards, then go to the chess room and wait for this Li Haoran. I guarantee that he'll be safe and sound tonight. Gu Changmin's complexion slightly changed. He turned to look at Li Haoran, who came with him. His expression turned serious and he said in a deep voice, Li Haoran, what's the matter with you? Brother Tang is an easygoing person. For him to come to your Li family in person, it means that someone in your Li family has made a mistake. What are you still staring blankly for? I'll apologize to Brother Tang. Li Haoran was stunned. He simply couldn't believe his ears. His old friend of decades actually wanted him to apologize to a young boy who hadn't even grown his hair yet? Also, what did he mean by winking at him? Suddenly, he recalled what his son said before. He had yet to investigate this Tan Xiu's identity until now. Could it be that his identity and background are not simple? As he thought up to there, he turned his head and fiercely glared at his son, Li Zhen. A very ugly smile appeared on his face as he said, Mr. Tang, I didn't know that you and Brother Gu knew each other. I hope you can be magnanimous and forgive me for my offense. Also, you don't have to say anything. I also know that my son is a troublemaker. You can rest assured that I'll teach him a lesson. Li Zhen, why are you still staring blankly? Come here and apologize to Mr. Tang. Dad, why are we afraid of him? Li Zhen angrily said. I don't believe that he can do anything to me. Gu Changmin noticed that Tan Xiu's complexion changed and immediately cursed inwardly. Almost in an instant, he strode to Li Zhen's front, raised his hand and fiercely slapped him, angrily shouting, Shut the hell up. Your elder asked you to apologize, so you must apologize to me. Li Haoran dotes on you and controls you, that's your family's business. But you're his son, so don't court disaster for him. Apologize. Li Zhen covered his cheek as if he couldn't believe that the slap just now was on his face. Furthermore, the one who slapped him was not his father, but Gu Changmin. He wanted to flip out, but Gu Changmin's identity made him not dare to rashly open his mouth. Therefore, his eyes once again shifted to his father, Li Haoran. Li Haoran's complexion turned a bit unsightly. He didn't expect that Gu Changmin would hit him. However, since the situation had turned into this, it was not good for him to fall out with Gu Changmin on the spot. He could only endure the resentment in his heart and shouted in a deep voice, Apologize. Li Zhen looked at his father and then at Gu Changmin. Finally, with an unwilling expression, he faced Tan Xiao and said, Tan Xiao, I apologize for what I did before. I didn't have good intentions tonight. I'm sorry. If I see you later, I'll take a detour according to our agreement. Take a detour. These 3 words were said in a very heavy tone. Tan Xiao coldly glanced at Li Haoran and Li Zhen. Then he turned to look at Gu Changmin and lightly said, Since Brother Gu wants to stand up for the Li family's father and son, then I'll forget about this matter. However, if anyone from the Li family provokes me again, don't blame me for being ruthless. Gu Changmin quickly smiled and said, Yes, yes. Thank you for your magnanimity, Brother Tang. Do you have time tomorrow? I'll treat you to a meal. Forget about the meal. I still have some things to do, so I'll take my leave first, said Tan Xiao. Gu Changmin quickly turned his head and winked at Li Haoran. Then he said with a smile, I'll send you off. A few minutes later, as the 3 cars left, Li Haoran, who was standing at the courtyard's entrance, looked gloomy. His eyes stared at Gu Changmin as he suppressed his anger and said, Brother Gu, I need you to give me an explanation. Gu Changmin's expression also turned a bit unsightly. He knew what Tan Xiao meant when he left. He didn't know how the wine produced by Tan Xiao's winery was before he made a big order. This could be considered as establishing a friendship with Tan Xiao, as well as giving him face. However, he was originally happy to play cards with Li Haoran today, but he had used up his face. Thinking about this matter made him feel a bit distressed. You want me to explain it to you here? Gu Changmin said with a cold face. Li Haoran's brows furrowed deeper, but he still said, Please come inside. The other 2 middle-aged men exchanged glances. They could sense the problem between Gu Changmin and Li Haoran. However, they secretly lamented Gu Changmin for being such a busybody. He even forced Li Haoran to apologize in the Li family's residence and even beat Li Zhen. They felt that it was too much. Chapter 374. In the villa's living room, Gu Changmin shook his head and said, Let's go to your study. Some things will be very troublesome if they were to be spoken out. I've already wasted my friendship with Tan Xiao for the sake of you and your father. I don't want any more problems to crop up. Brother Chen and Brother Gao are not outsiders. I think it's fine for them to hear it, no? Said Li Haoran lightly. Today Li Haoran, have lost face in front of them. If this matter were to be spread out later, I would have no place to hide my face. Gu Changmin's expression turned cold. He angrily stared at Li Haoran for half a minute before he turned around and walked outside. Hey, Brother Gu, what are you doing? Brother Li wants to save his face first, so, well, I and old Gao will wait for you in the chess room. The middle-aged man surnamed Li forced a smile and caught up with Gu Changmin, pulling his arm. Li Haoran's expression slightly changed. Gu Changmin's abnormal attitude made him somewhat incredulous. It must be noted that he and Gu Changmin had known each other for decades, yet this was the first time he saw him acting so abnormal. Could it be? Was there really a problem with his attitude? Did he really help me? Li Haoran's mind raced and the anger in his heart disappeared a lot. He walked a few steps toward Gu Changmin and forced a smile. Brother Gu, I didn't mean anything by it. We've known each other for decades, so you should know what kind of temper I have. Today, someone came to my door and I have to bow my head and admit my mistake in my own home. I'm really angry inside. I hope you can forgive me if I offended you. The middle-aged man surnamed Gao also opened his mouth. Brother Gu, tell us what's going on. We're not outsiders, and I don't understand why you acted like afraid in front of that young man surnamed Tang. In any case, I'm afraid I'll also be like Brother Li if this matter were to happen to me. Gu Changmin took a deep breath. He looked at the curious expressions of the 3 people, as well as Li Zhen's embarrassed expression a few steps away. He sighed softly and returned to the sofa to sit down. Tell them to go out. Li Haoran immediately waved to all the bodyguards to leave the hall. Gu Changmin slowly said, Everyone, you should know the Miao Group in Haiqing Province, right? The Miao Group's boss, Miao Wendong, is an old friend of mine for many years. You should also know him. Got it. I have. The 3 of them nodded. their eyes filled with confusion. Gu Changmin sighed and said, "Among the two women who followed Tan Xiao just now, I believe you've seen the slightly older one, right?" The middle-aged man surnamed Gao said, "I've seen her, and I have a deep impression of her. She's the manager of the Everlasting Feast Hall, a slick woman who's very good at management." "Yes, it's the Everlasting Feast Hall." Gu Changmin nodded. "I don't know how much you know about the Everlasting Feast Hall." Li Haoran frowned and said, "Brother Gu, the Everlasting Feast Hall is just an upscale restaurant. Who are we? What's the point of knowing a restaurant?" Gu Changmin shook his head and said, "If the Everlasting Feast Hall was just an upscale restaurant, I naturally wouldn't have any fear in front of Tang Xiao. I wouldn't have made friends with him. As a matter of fact, it's fortunate that I'm here today. You don't see any obvious intention of fawning on me. If old Jean, that is, Jean Xinkue was here, he wouldn't be hoping to befriend me, but flatter me instead." Li Haoran's expression slightly changed and he quickly said, "Brother Gu, tell me about the Everlasting Feast Hall." "I learned about the situation of the Everlasting Feast Hall from Brother Miao Wentong a few days ago," said Gu Changmin slowly. "I learned that the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall is Tan Xiao, so I sent some people to investigate it. Although I didn't dare to send people to investigate it in depth, the little information I got was enough to shock me. The Everlasting Feast Hall's headquarters is in Jingmen Island, which was established decades ago. The restaurant only has branches in Jingmen Island, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and the imperial capital. According to the information I got, it also has gold, silver, jewelry, real estate, and luxury jewelry businesses. My ability is limited, and I don't dare to investigate the Everlasting Feast Hall with great fanfare, so I got this information. As for how much business the Everlasting Feast Hall has, I don't know." "Brother Gu, just because the Everlasting Feast Hall has a big business?" asked Li Haoran. Gu Changmin waved his hand to interrupt him and lightly said, "Li Haoran, I actually regret it now. I shouldn't have meddled in other people's business." "Brother Gu," Li Haoran opened his mouth. "You don't need to explain." Gu Changmin shook his head. "Don't you want to know why I acted so strangely? I can tell you directly that your Li family will be finished if I don't plead for leniency for you tonight. Perhaps tomorrow will be the death anniversary of you and your father. From another point of view, if the three of us didn't happen to come here to play cards tonight, I'm afraid your Li family would have been massacred tonight." Li Haoran abruptly got up and looked at Gu Changmin asking, "Brother Gu, you're not trying to scare me, are you? We're living in a society ruled by law now. Those rich and powerful people may be able to solve it by killing one or two people. But slaughtering an entire family is simply a joke, no?" Gu Changmin coldly looked at him and coldly snorted, "You're just ignorant. If you don't believe me, I'll prove it to you." Having said that, he took out his cell phone and dialed a number. After it was picked up, he directly put it on speaker and said, "Old Jean, it's Gu Changmin. Brother Gu, you haven't rested yet." Jean Xinkue's cheerful voice came out of the phone. "Old Jean, not only did I not sleep, but I also made a losing deal," said Gu Changmin. "What happened?" Jean Xinkue was confused. "Tell me, do you want me to help you with something?" "It's me, Old Jean. I'm with Li Haoran now," said Gu Changmin with a forced smile. "I'll ask you a few questions. You just need to answer them and you'll help me a lot. I don't want to use my relationship with Tang Xiao and end up in a situation where I'm in a bad position." "Alright, tell me, wait a minute. What did you just say? You used up your relationship with Tan Xiao? We had to put on a smiling face in the Everlasting Feast Hall, and it wasn't easy to get it back?" Jean Xinkue's exclamation came out of the phone. Replied Gu Changmin bitterly. Jean Xinkue was silent for a moment before he slowly said, "Brother Gu, I don't know what you're going to say has anything to do with Tan Xiao. But I can tell you that unless it's a matter of life and death for our family, using up our relationship with Tan Xiao will be a big loss. Alright, tell me, what's the matter?" "I came to the Li family tonight by a freak combination of factors. As a result, I bumped into Tan Xiao, who came to ask for an explanation. Li Zhen provoked Tan Xiao, and the enmity between them seems to be very deep. I believe you also know how protective Li Haoran is. I'm afraid that he also provoked Tan Xiu's dissatisfaction. Therefore, I came forward to plead for leniency, and this matter was resolved. Jin Xinkue was silent for a while before he lightly said, his Li family was lucky today and avoided a bloody disaster. In my opinion, if it weren't for you tonight, even if the Li family had to spend all their assets, it would be good enough for them to keep their lives. As for Tan Xiu, anyone can be provoked in this world, but not that fiend. Li Haoran couldn't sit still. He didn't expect that Jin Xinkue would say such words, so he quickly said, Brother Jin, I'm Li Haoran. Can you tell me who Tan Xiu is? Does he really have such a powerful background behind him? His background? Jin Xinkue sneered. He doesn't need any background. Just the everlasting feast hall's boss can easily destroy your Li family. Let alone your Li family, my Jin family, and Brother Gu, even if the three of us join forces, I'm afraid we won't be able to do anything to the everlasting feast hall. There's a 99% chance that all three of us will be exterminated. Brother Jin, aren't you just being an alarmist? Li Haoran asked in horror. Do you think I'm an alarmist? Jin Xinkue sneered. Do you think I'm an alarmist? Li Haoran's complexion turned a bit pale. Li Haoran, to tell you the truth, you owe Brother Gu a huge favor, said Jin Xinkue. This favor is so big that it won't be an exaggeration to ask your Li family to pay it back in the future. All right, I've said everything I need to say. You're on your own now. The call ended. Now do you know why I asked you to apologize to Tan Xiu? Gu Changmin said lightly. It's because I, an outsider, personally hit your son in front of you? If I didn't hit him, he would have died tonight. Do you dare to intervene? If you intervene, your Li family will be wiped out. You don't know how terrifying the everlasting feast hall is. To be honest, even I don't know much about it. But my old friend, Miao Weneng, knows it, and so does Jin Xinkue. Li Haoran abruptly got up and strode toward the shocked Li Zhen. He fiercely slapped him a few times and angrily shouted, Go to the study room and kneel. See how I'll deal with you. Li Zhen was trembling with fear as he covered his face and quickly ran toward the study room. If it were in the past, he might have gone against his father. But what happened tonight, as well as several powerful big shots in Shanghai who were terrified of Tan Xiu, made him realize that he had provoked a terrifying existence. Li Haoran returned to the sofa, but he didn't sit down. Instead, he looked deeply at Gu Changmin and said, Brother Gu, Li Haoran will always remember today's kindness. You're a magnanimous man, so please don't lower yourself to my level for what I just did. If you need anything in the future, just say it. As long as I, Li Haoran, can do it, I'll do it without hesitation. Gu Changmin's expression eased a lot and he sighed. Brother Li, if it weren't for our decades of friendship, I wouldn't have said anything more tonight. Had it been someone else, I might have hit Tan Xiu when he was down in order to express my goodwill. We're old friends, so I won't speak empty words with you. I kind of regret coming to your Li family tonight. 5 chapters have been released today. Are you guys surprised? Chapter 375. Li Haoran looked a bit embarrassed. After he sat back on the sofa, he forced a wry smile and said, Who would have thought that Tan Xiu would have such a terrifying power at such a young age? We're in a high position, so we can see a lot of things more clearly than ordinary people, said Gu Changmin. Our status and wealth are actually just a joke in the eyes of many people. For example, those families that have been passed down for hundreds or even hundreds of years. They didn't fall during the Great Turmoil, and even hid their strength and bided their time to quietly develop their family's power. Who knows how terrifying they have become after so many years of accumulation? Li Haoran deeply agreed and nodded. You're right, Brother Gu. I was too arrogant this time. Actually, the root cause lies with your son. Gu Changmin sighed. Li Zhen has been spoiled since he was a child. His character is arrogant and domineering, ignorant and incompetent. I've helped you solve today's matter, but what about the future? If he provokes big trouble again, how will your Li family deal with it? Will you be easily destroyed by him? Li Haoran's expression was a bit cold as he nodded and said, "Don't worry, Brother Gu. I'll control him well in the future. I won't hesitate even if I have to make him suffer some hardships." Gu Changmin nodded. There was still a trace of worry in Li Haoran's eyes as he asked, "Brother Gu, do you think today's matter is really over? What if that Tan Xiu is narrow-minded and narrow-minded?" Gu Changmin was silent for a moment before he slowly said, "If I were you, I'd immediately inquire about his address and send him compensation overnight. As far as I know, some families that are more powerful than your Li family once lost more than half of their family's wealth because they provoked Tang Xiu." Hiss! Li Haoran's eyes turned round and he couldn't help but gasp. Immediately, he dialed a cell number and asked in a deep voice, "How much liquid funds do our company have now?" "I got it. Immediately transfer 600 million to me. I need it now." After hanging up the phone, he looked at the middle-aged men surnamed Li and Gao. Seeing their horrified expressions, he forced a smile and said, "Two old friends, our Li group can only transfer 600 million funds at most, while I still have 200 million in savings. Can you lend me 200 million? Once I have enough funds, I will return it to you immediately." The middle-aged man surnamed Li asked curiously, "Are you going to give 1 billion to Tan Xiu as an apology?" Li Haoran glanced at Gu Changmin. He nodded and sighed, "I believe that Brother Gu and Jin Xingkue won't deceive me. Take out 1 billion yuan and treat it as a way to avoid disaster." Middle-aged Li and middle-aged Gao looked at each other. "For this kind of thing, both of us will fork out 100 million. If it's not enough, you can ask again." The middle-aged man surnamed Li sighed. Li Haoran gratefully looked at the two and said, "Three old friends, I'm afraid I can't accompany you to play cards tonight. Since I already owe you a big favor tonight, I, Li Haoran, will shamelessly ask the three of you to help me inquire about Tan Xiu's residence. I'll personally visit him later." "No problem. All right." The three of them nodded. Blue Star Villa Complex. Tan Xiu returned with Kong Xia. In fact, it was Kong Xia who asked to come back. As for Qi Nan and the Everlasting Feast Hall's members, they directly went back to the Everlasting Feast Hall on the way back. "Boss, is this where you live? This villa is quite stylish." Kong Xia didn't have much interest in the villa, but it was someone else's villa. She had visited the place where Tan Xiu lived. "My aunt gave it to me." Tan Xiu faintly smiled. "Maybe I'll live on campus after Shanghai University officially opens. But if possible, I'll live here." "I really doubt that you can live in a public dormitory on campus," said Kong Xia with a smile. "Don't look down on me." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing. "I've also gone through hard times. Let alone a university dormitory, I can live a good life even if I have a shed." Kong Xia let out a charming smile and walked to the front of Tan Xiu. She hugged Tan Xiu's waist and whispered, "The man I like is really a dragon among men. You know what? I've never been in love before, and I don't know what it feels like to fall in love with a man. But ever since, I've been thinking about you every day. I wonder what you're doing, whether you've eaten or not, and whether you've slept well. Now, I finally understand that loving someone is to be worried and full of longing for them." Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and secretly sighed inwardly. He reached out to touch her elegant long hair and whispered, "You should know that I can't give you a marriage, nor can I give you a complete love." Kong Xia raised her head and looked at Tan Xiu with her bright eyes, asking, "Can you tell me why? Have you ever been emotionally scarred?" Tan Xiu avoided Kong Xia's gaze and gently pushed her away. Then he slowly walked to the second floor and came to his room. He took out a bottle of red wine from the wine cabinet and poured 2 glasses. He handed one to Kong Xia, who followed him inside, and then turned to the balcony. Looking at the dim lights outside and the swaying shadows of the trees, he whispered, "I used to be a person who wasn't good at expressing myself. But when I fall in love with someone, I'll give them my true feelings. But there's something I can't figure out, and I don't want to think about it anymore. Maybe I'll give my heart to someone in the future, but not now." Kong Xia understood Tan Xiu's meaning. She gently came to Tan Xiu's side, folded her arms and said, "If I cultivate the cultivation technique you taught me, I can really live for a very long time. I'm confident that I can pry open your sealed heart and enter your heart. Tan Xiao shook his head and sighed. There are many outstanding men in this world. Why do you? Kang Xia interrupted Tan Xiao with a solemn expression and said, That's right. There are many outstanding men in this world, but none of them is better than you. Besides, you're my first man, and also my last man. I can't give you a complete family in the future, sighed Tan Xiao. I've thought about it carefully. I don't need a complete family, said Kang Xia without hesitation. You just need to give me a child. Child? Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment before he shook his head with a forced smile. At this moment, he suddenly realized something. He had been with her for so many years in his past life, yet she had never been pregnant with his child from the beginning to the end. Even if it was very difficult for a supreme in the immortal world to make a woman pregnant, it was impossible for there to be no accidents after so many years, right? Could it be? Did she use some special means to deliberately not give him a child? That's right. Her feelings for him might be fake, so how could she give birth to a child for him? A mournful look flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes. He gently raised his chin and looked at the distant starry sky. His eyes seemed to be able to see through the firmament, as though to penetrate through countless worlds to see the figure in the immortal world who once made him fall in love with her. Han Qingwu? Han Qingwu's name suddenly emerged in Tan Xiao's mind, along with the face that was very similar to hers. Could it be her? Although they had so many similarities, but maybe it was just a coincidence. After all, Han Qingwu was just an ordinary person now. One of them was in the immortal world, while the other was on Earth. Even if she reincarnated, there was only a 1 in a billion chance that she would be reincarnated on Earth. Furthermore, although her cultivation was not as good as his, there were only a few people in the immortal world who were stronger than her. Who could kill her? Who could force her to be reincarnated? Tan Xiao muttered to himself inwardly. He drove the two very similar faces out of his mind and turned to look at Kang Xia, who was in a daze. What are you thinking about? Kang Xia came back to her senses. A touch of shyness appeared on her face as she said, I'm thinking about whether the child we have in the future will be a boy or a girl. If it's a boy, he must look like you. If it's a girl, she must look like me. Don't let your imagination run wild, Tan Xiao said with a smile. It's not suitable for us to have a child now. Let's wait and see. Kang Xia hesitated for a moment and nodded silently. I'm sleepy, Kang Xia suddenly said. Tan Xiao's eyes swept over her white neck and sensual collarbone. A warm feeling flowed inside his heart. He reached out to hug her fragrant shoulder and walked toward the house with a smile. Although we're not in a hurry to have a child, we still have to enjoy the taste of... That night, even though Tan Xiao was a cultivator, he was still very tired. As for Han Qingwu, she was so tired that she didn't even want to move her fingers. Finally, Tan Xiao hugged her to wash her body and then hugged her to sleep. The next morning, a ray of sunlight shone through the gap of the French window curtains and fell on Tan Xiao, who was lying on the big bed. When his eyelashes fluttered and he woke up from his sleep, he found that Kang Xia's figure was no longer beside him. Boss, you're awake? Kang Xia came in from the bedroom's door. Seeing that Tan Xiao had washed up and dressed neatly, she immediately smiled sweetly. Yeah, I just woke up, said Tan Xiao. Why did you get up so early? Are you going to the wine tasting conference? There's still time. Kang Xia nodded with a smile. I wanted to make breakfast for you, but I found that there was nothing in the fridge, so I went outside to buy some breakfast for you. That's right, there's someone waiting for you outside the villa. He seems to have been waiting for you all night. Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment and then said with a confused expression, apart from you and Qinan, there seems to be no one else who knows where I live in Shanghai. Besides, Qinan only knows that I live in this villa complex and has never been here. It's Li Haoran, said Kang Xia. What's he doing here? Tan Xiao frowned and asked. Didn't he solve the problem last night? I don't know. Kang Xia shook her head. Tan Xiao was silent for a moment. Then he walked outside and said, Let's go. Let's go see him and see what else he wants. If he still wants to find trouble, we might as well exterminate his Li family. Chapter 376. Outside the villa. Kang Xia walked out of the courtyard again and looked at Li Haoran, who was leaning on the front of the car and smoking silently. She walked a few steps and said, "Boss has woken up and wants you to come in." Li Haoran hurriedly extinguished the cigarette. After nodding, he spoke to the two bodyguards beside him in a deep voice, "Wait for me outside." Finished. He followed Kang Xia into the villa's courtyard. The lobby on the first floor. Tan Xiu sat on the sofa and quietly watched Li Haoran walk in. He did not get up, and even his eyes were filled with indifference. Li Haoran came to the front of Tan Xiu and said with a bitter smile, "Mr. Tang, it was indeed my fault last night. But I didn't have the time to apologize because I was in a hurry." Tan Xiu asked lightly, "You came here just to tell me this?" Li Haoran took out a bank card from his pocket and placed it on the coffee table in front of Tan Xiu. Then he respectfully said, "Mr. Tang, please accept this card as an apology. The pin is written on the back." Tan Xiu glanced at the bank card and lightly said, "I'll take it. The enmity between us is written off. Remember, don't let your son appear in front of me again. If I'm in a bad mood one day, I might take his life." Li Haoran's expression changed and he quickly said, "I still have some business in the imperial capital. Tomorrow? No. I'll let him go to the imperial capital to work today. Furthermore, unless it's a festive occasion, I definitely won't let him take half a step back into Shanghai." Tan Xiu sighed and said, "Actually, I'm afraid of trouble. If it's not someone who wants my life, I'm too lazy to act against them. I believe you are well aware of your son's character. Keep him in check. The matter between us can be considered settled, but if he offends someone your Li family can't afford to offend in the future, I'm afraid he won't be so lucky then." Li Haoran forced a smile and said, "Don't worry. I'll definitely discipline him strictly, even if I have to use some special means." Tan Xiu stood up and said, "You don't seem to be in good spirits. You probably haven't slept all night. Go back and rest early." Yes. Li Haoran nodded repeatedly. After Tan Xiu sent him out of the villa, he quickly walked out of the courtyard and left with his two bodyguards. He only heaved a sigh of relief when he left the villa area. Kang Xia, who stood beside Tan Xiu, saw that Tan Xiu didn't pick up the bank card from the beginning to the end. She immediately said with a smile, "Boss, Li Haoran's apology fee should be quite a lot, right? My guess is that there should be more than 1 million. 1 million? Tan Xiu couldn't help but roll his eyes. If it was 1 million, then they were looking down on him too much. Back in Hong Kong, the compensation offered by those families was hundreds of times more than 1 million. Check the amount of money in the card. Take it and use it to develop our magnificent Tang Corporation. Although I'm poor now, I can still get by." Kang Xia couldn't help laughing and said, "Are you still poor, boss? If you were poor, I would definitely be a beggar. However, you should keep this compensation for yourself. Our magnificent Tang Corporation doesn't lack this little bit of money." "You're not going to check how much is in there?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. Kang Xia hesitated for a moment before she nodded and said, "All right, I'll check it." 2 minutes later, Kang Xia looked at the amount displayed on the mobile banking system and carefully checked it twice. A horrified expression appeared on her beautiful face as she raised her hand to cover her mouth. "What's wrong? How much money is in there for you to be scared like this?" Tan Xiu asked with a smile. Kang Xia loosened her hand. Her lips squirmed a few times as she muttered, 1 billion. I've counted that string of zeros twice, and it's absolutely not wrong. It's definitely 1 billion. Li Haoran actually gave 1 billion as compensation? Tan Xiu nodded and said, "At least he knows how to do things. He didn't send me away with a few melons and dates. Just take the money. The stronger the financial resources of our magnificent Tang Corporation, the better the development will be. I heard that it's not a big deal for our company to be spread all over the country. Only when we can enter the international market can we be regarded as a large company." Kang Xia put away her shocked expression and a bright smile appeared on her beautiful face. After sitting down next to Tan Xiu, she hugged Tan Xiu's neck and kissed his face. Then, she jumped away with a charming smile, raised the bank card in her hand and said, "I originally had a big plan, but I couldn't implement it due to lack of funds. Now that I have 1 billion, I'm sure that I can prepare the preliminary work for the big plan. After our drinks, cosmetics, and healthcare products are officially launched, there will be a steady stream of funds coming in at that time. I believe it won't be a problem to complete my big plan. Tan Xiao touched his cheek and smilingly asked, "What big plan? Tell me about it." "Real estate speculation." Kong Xia blinked and proudly said with a smile. "Real estate speculation?" Tan Xiao was confused. "Since when did our magnificent Tang Corporation have such a business? We don't have it now, but we will have it in the future." Kong Xia proudly smiled and said, "I've sent some people to investigate the big project jointly developed by several forces. The upcoming small new cities' housing prices will definitely soar like a rocket in the future. Therefore, I need to prepare a lot of funds to directly buy a lot of real estate. After hoarding for some time, I'm sure the housing prices will skyrocket, and we can make a lot of money when the time comes." "Isn't this a malicious speculation?" Tan Xiao was surprised. "It's not malicious speculation." Kong Xia shook her head. "We're one of the developers. If we buy it internally, not only will it be cheaper than the auction, it's also our fixed assets. I've sent some people to investigate. Whether it's the Long Group, the two companies in the imperial capital, or Miao Wenang and Xiaomingzhen, they won't be able to take out much money to buy internally once the project is over. Perhaps the Ouyang family in Jingmen Island can take out some, but I believe it won't be much. Our magnificent Tang Corporation has only been established for a short time." Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, "Even if all our products hit the market, I'm afraid we won't be able to accumulate much money in a short time, no? Even if we have billions of funds, we won't be able to buy a lot of real estate. I heard that you've decided to set a very high price for the housing there. Boss, even if it's only a few billion, do you think it'll be worth it if we hoard it for some time to make it several times?" Kong Xia said with a smile. "Several times?" Tang Xiao's heart was secretly shaken, and his eyes burst with a bright light. After thinking for a moment, he then said in a deep voice, "Remember to notify me in advance when the big plan starts. I'll try to get a lot of funds for you to operate." "All right." Kong Xia nodded with a smile. Suddenly, she seemed to realize something and curiously asked, "Boss, Li Haoran is a shrewd businessman. How could he compensate us so much money? It's 1 billion. Even if his Li Group is big and has a lot of funds, wouldn't 1 billion be enough for them to choke?" "Do you think 1 billion is a lot?" Tan Xiao chuckled. 2 months ago, I had some conflicts with some famous big families in Hong Kong. The total compensation I got from them is more than 10 billion. I forgot the specific amount, but I'm sure it's more than 10 billion. 10 billion? Kong Xia shuddered inwardly and disbelief was written all over her beautiful face. Suddenly, she screamed and directly rushed to Tan Xiao's side. She grabbed Tan Xiao's arm and hurriedly asked, "Boss, you got so much money? What about the money? Our magnificent Tang Corporation is short on money." Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, "Don't show such a money grubber look, all right? I don't say it, but it's quite cute. You don't need to think about that money. I have a great use for it." Kong Xia stared blankly and an embarrassed expression appeared on her face. But she still asked, "What did you do? Did you buy the Everlasting Feast Hall?" "The Everlasting Feast Hall is ours to begin with, so there's no need to buy it." Tan Xiao shook his head. "Didn't I tell you?" 9 Dragons Island. Kong Xia suddenly sobered up. She patted her head and said with a charming smile, "Look at me, I actually forgot about it. Anyways, boss, I'm really curious. You bought an island, but why did you spend so much money to renovate it?" 9 Dragons Island will be our base camp later," said Tan Xiao. "Base camp? Is it also the Everlasting Feast Hall's base camp?" asked Kong Xia hesitantly. Tan Xiao took a deep breath and said, "I'll take you to the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ when I have time. You'll know what kind of existence the Everlasting Feast Hall is when you get there." "All right." Kong Xia nodded without a word. After breakfast, Tan Xiao didn't follow Kong Xia to the wine tasting conference venue but went to the campus instead. Although the classes had yet to start and the military training had yet to begin, he still decided to take a stroll around the campus. Then, he would take the time to refine an interspatial ring while everyone was training. And now, everything was ready to refine an interspatial ring. Only the east wind was missing. And this east wind was time. Strolling around the campus, Tan Xiu looked at the youthful boys and girls coming and going around him. He seemed to be infected by them and was obviously in a good mood. Honk, honk. A car's horn sounded behind him. Tan Xiu turned his head and saw Yu Yang's BMW slowly following behind him. Big bro Tang, you're back? We brothers were discussing that if you didn't come back, we would go to the Public Security Bureau and report you missing. Yu Yang opened the window and smilingly said, inside the car. Aside from Yu Yang, who was driving, Hu Qingsong was also in the front passenger seat. However, their eyes were red and it was obvious that they didn't sleep well last night. Hey, where did you two go last night? Looking at your dispirited appearance, you didn't have a good rest, did you? Tan Xiu got into the back seat and asked with a smile. It's all because of Yu Yang, said Hu Qingsong with a northeastern accent. She dragged me to the bar. But, it was quite interesting. Those two girls last night were pretty good. Chapter 377. Tan Xiu sat comfortably in the back seat and listened to Hu Qingsong's proud laughter. He rolled his eyes and gave him a look of disdain. Fickle. It would not be a big deal if Hu Qingsong hooked up with one girl, but he actually hooked up with two girls at the same time. This was definitely promiscuous. Tan Xiu was speechless at his behavior. The military training is tomorrow, right? Tan Xiu smiled and asked. Yu Kai nodded while driving and said, yeah. Tomorrow, the melting pot of the army will destroy us, the future flowers of our motherland. What a pity. This isn't my father's company, but the famous Shanghai University. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to participate in the military training and suffer. Tell me, should I purposely injure my foot and then apply for leave? No problem. I think your suggestion is very good, said Hu Qing with a smile. However, it was said that during military training, men and women were mixed. That was the best time to pick up girls. If a certain someone were to give up such a heaven-sent opportunity, in the future, he would have to look at us with envy. The injury hurts a lot, so I've decided to participate in the military training. Yu Kai appeared serious, but in the eyes of others, he was shameless. Very soon, the car was parked in front of the dormitory. During this time, they talked about school matters and Xue Chao, who was still hospitalized. After returning to the dormitory, Tan Xiu glanced at his bed, then sat down in front of his desk. He reached out and grabbed a few textbooks. After casually flipping through them for a while, he decided to bring them back. He wanted to take advantage of the time he had left to revise. Diligence is the path to a mountain of books, and there is no end to the sea of learning. Learn. Make money. Cultivate. This was the path he had set for himself. To him, wasting time was equivalent to wasting his life. Hu Qingsong suddenly turned around to look at Tan Xiu and asked, all the major clubs in our campus are recruiting new blood. Eldest brother Tang, which society are you planning to join? Society? Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he shook his head and said, I'm not interested in joining any society. If you have the time, you might as well learn more things. Hu Qingsong grinned and said, anyways, big bro Tang, are you a young man or not? We young people should be hot-blooded and try new things. I have decided to join the basketball club and the hip-hop club. Why don't you follow me? Yu Kai turned around and said with a faint smile, I say, old Hu, do you really want eldest brother Tang to join the hip-hop club with you? Based on his flirting skills, if he really joined the hip-hop club, I'm afraid the pretty girl you're interested in wouldn't even look at you again, right? Who knows, maybe when the time comes, she'll throw herself at eldest brother Tang. Hu Qingsong's expression froze for a moment before he suddenly sobered up. He waved his hand and said, just pretend that I didn't say anything just now, big bro Tang. Tan Xiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Can you stop talking nonsense? What flirting? What do you mean by throwing yourself at me? Your thoughts are not healthy. Big bro Tang, we only have unhealthy thoughts, but your mind and body are both unhealthy. Yu Kai chuckled. Speaking of which, with so many beauties liking you, can your small body take it? Tang Xiu rolled his eyes and didn't bother to pay attention to him. Yu Kai chuckled and said, Big bro Tang, let's make it clear first. You can join any club, but don't join the music club. I'll save those beautiful girls in our music club. Tan Xiu got up. He was now convinced by his dormitory buddies. Each and every one of them was like the reincarnation of perverts. They came here to study, but not to study at all. Instead, they looked like they came here to find their wives. If they had this free time, they might as well go to the matchmaking agency. Shaking his head, he took a few books and walked out of the dormitory. Just focus on hooking up with those girls. I won't participate in the military training, and I won't come to campus again if there's nothing going on. Just call me if you need anything. You won't participate in the military training? Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong were dumbfounded. They only reacted after seeing Tan Xiu walk out of the dormitory's door. Hu Qingsong dashed out of the dormitory's door and looked at Tan Xiu leaving in the corridor. Then he shouted, Big bro Tang, will the campus approve your decision not to participate in the military training? It's approved. Tan Xiu waved without looking back and turned into the corridor. Standing at the dormitory's door, Hu Qingsong turned his head to look at Yu Kai. His lips squirmed twice as he sighed, truly worthy of being Big bro Tang. This ability. When Tan Xiu left campus, he called Miao Wenong and learned that he had contacted Dao Master Z. Now, Dao Master Z was rushing to Shanghai with his apprentice. Tan Xiu was secretly relieved. He hoped to refine an interspatial ring as soon as possible. Once it was refined, he would no longer have to worry about carrying his belongings. Moreover, he would no longer have to worry about losing the good things he had obtained. Of course, he also had another idea. After the interspatial ring was refined, there should be a lot of precious materials left. When the time came, he could conveniently refine a handy weapon. After a few fights. Although the Mitsubishi Army knife was sharp, it was not convenient for him. He couldn't even store it inside his body. Let's go to the hospital. After leaving the campus, Tan Xiu stopped a taxi outside and went straight to Shanghai's first public hospital. Shanghai World Trade Convention and Exhibition Center. At the moment, the number 0246 counter of the venue was already crowded with people. All the people who came to participate in the wine tasting conference had heard the name God's Nectar. They also knew that the 7 judges held it in high esteem. Therefore, countless people wanted to taste the taste of God's nectar. If it was good, almost all the liquor wholesalers were willing to buy it wholesale. Before, no one showed interest in the number 0246 counter. But now, the clamor of the crowd was boiling as countless people came over to curry favor. The two diametrically opposed situations made Kong Xia's self-confidence stronger. Sun Quan and several other employees also felt happy. Now, I'm issuing a notice to all liquor wholesalers to wait outside. All factory staff, please wait at your counter. Friends from the media, please prepare to record. The wine tasting competition will soon begin. Immediately, dozens of venue security personnel quickly came to the venue and asked all the liquor wholesalers to wait outside. Then, they supervised the dozens of media reporters to prevent them from making trouble for the interview. Another voice came from the broadcast. Friends, there are a total of 260 merchants participating in the wine tasting competition. Next, there will be 7 judges tasting the wines from various manufacturers. However, because there are too many wines to taste, the 7 judges will be divided into 7 groups, sharing the 260 wines. They will judge the 5 winners, and then the 7 judges will taste them together and finally give the result. Shanghai First People's Hospital. Tan Xiu came to Xue Chao's ward and saw that only 2 of the 3 beds were occupied. One of them was empty. He smiled and looked at Xue Chao, who was sitting on the bed with a frown. Did you encounter a problem? Why do you look like this? Tan Xiu walked to the end of the bed and asked with a smile. Xue Chao looked up and saw Tan Xiu. It was as if he saw his savior. However, he opened his mouth and hesitated several times. Eventually, he lowered his head and silently shook his head. Tan Xiu put the fruits he brought to the side and sat on the empty bed. He then said with a smile, Xue Chao will be classmates in the future. Moreover, we're roommates. Just tell me if there's anything. If I can help, I won't say a word. Xue Chao's lips squirmed a few times. He hesitantly looked at Tan Xiu and then probed, Do you have money? Tan Xiu said with a smile, A little. Xue Chao quickly said, Then, can you lend me some money? Tan Xiu, please don't misunderstand me. I know this is the second time we meet. It's not good for me to borrow money from you. But I don't have any other way. If I can't borrow money, my wife and child won't be able to eat. Wife and child? Tan Xiu blinked and said with a strange expression, You mean not only do you have a wife, but you also have a child? Xue Chao nodded and said with a forced smile, Yeah, my wife is my high school classmate. We had our wedding after graduating from high school. Although we haven't officially gotten the marriage certificate, my son is almost a year and a half old. Originally, with my family's conditions, I couldn't come to Shanghai to study. But my wife forced me to come to Shanghai to study. She told me that if I couldn't successfully finish my university studies, she would take my son and go far away, never to see me again. Tan Xiu said, Xue Chao, I know you came from the mountains. Your wife and child are still in the mountains, right? Xue Chao forced a smile and said, If they were still in the mountains, I wouldn't have to worry about food and drink. Even if I go to the mountains to dig some wild vegetables, I can still fill my stomach. But the day before yesterday, she took my son to Shanghai to look for me. I've been staying in the hospital for the past 2 days. What about them? Tan Xiu asked. Xue Chao sighed, I only have 60 yuan left. I'll give it to them to buy something to eat. Even if those 60 yuan can last for today and tomorrow, what will happen the day after tomorrow? How will I live in the future? I understand. Tan Xiu said. You can rest assured about the money. Since they came to Shanghai, you must take good care of them. However, they should know about your situation. Why did they come to Shanghai? Also, your parents? Xue Chao sighed. Forget it. I might as well tell you. My wife's family disliked me for being poor, so they didn't agree to let us get married. My wife quarreled with them, and we finally held the wedding. However, she couldn't get any help from her family. As for my family, apart from my mother, I have no other relatives. My son got sick after I came to Shanghai. Although he took some medicine, he still hasn't recovered yet. It's been 3 or 4 days. If I can't get the money, I'm afraid he'll be burned to death. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.